with me that year, Bob Force, a veteran, his wife in a wheelchair, and you could not do the compassionate and merciful thing to understand that people make mistakes, errors, they get lost in life. You fix your mistakes. You have amendment to resolutions. Why can't we have a resolution regarding my home? I asked you this. I still do research. We have a county attorney who stated you don't have to do it anymore. Why not? That's all I'm asking for is, why not? Back then, in January 2015, Seward sent a letter to Mr. Aarons and myself, to my county rep. In it, he stated, please resolve this issue. Nothing. Nothing. It was ignored. The only board member who stood up, stood out, spoke up and spoke out was Betty Schwerd. May God rest that angel. She was not afraid to go forward with something that was unjust in her mind and unpopular. Because after all, what am I? What have I been called? The names are horrible. If I can't help you, I gotta help everybody else. I'm the only one standing here, along with the forces. And they are honorable people. Properties were given back. Resolutions, I get none. So, my 3 minutes are almost up. I have to get back to work. We're on a skeleton staff. I'm gonna congratulate our new deputy treasurer on his posting. I believe his name is Andrew Chrisman. I didn't read anything about the paper. I find out, though. You know, people talk, but that's how it is. So, on this snowy day home, consider what I have told you. Look up Tacitus. You will find him amazing on what he knows about judgment, government, ethics, and morality. Safe travels, my friend. See you in March.
So I would like to speak. I'm Russell Aarons. Thank you, first of all, to the press who covered this last month in very good detail, I must say. It's one of the few times that what was right was stated in the newspaper. I'm kind of thankful. I don't know if our new treasurer is going to get the accolades that our last one did, but it seemed that the newspaper, at least the Daily Star, would hang on his every word. And some of the words that I recall at the auction, Don Lindbergh was quoted as saying, it was like an old-fashioned hanging. It was the most traumatic thing that I have ever lived through in my life. And it was all done by man's choice, by the choice of a person, by the choice of a judge, by the choice of somebody with sole discretion. And this is for the new treasurer that's coming in. I'm not exactly sure what that means, but to me, in America, it means that if you do for one person, you do for everybody, because you've now opened the gate. So we know, and we have proof, that Maria Agello was treated differently than other taxpayers who were allowed to redeem their property, which is lawful. Save the Force Farm. Bob Force wanted to be here today. Please don't feel threatened by Bob Force. He had 111 acres. He owned it for 30 years. He was a person that the treasurer would not talk with about trying to fix things. He has a wife who's disabled in a wheelchair. That brings me to another point. At this point, Maria and I are condemned to living in a 54-year-old mobile home. That's on County Road 26, just south of Cooperstown, near its terminus, where just 2 days ago there was a 4-car accident. That corner needs to be studied, probably need a traffic light, but the speed on County Road 26 needs to be addressed. I have heavy trucking through there constantly. Even this morning, people are ripping through there and they're going wherever, but it's a major commuting road. Please, even without a traffic study, do it. Just common sense with all the accidents we've had. Now, a few other things that come to mind, and I really wanted to start this with a moment of silence for those in our community of the past that have really made such significant changes and made such significant influence in my life. One of them being Paul Lambert, Judge Lambert's father, who was our superintendent of schools in Cooperstown, longtime acquaintance that we knew in this area. What an honorable man. I had a one-to-one talk with him at the beginning of all this stuff when it happened one night. And we never really had a moment in front of the judges to even have any input in this. But Paul was a great listener and a wonderful man. Our community is going to miss him. So then my coworkers asked me to talk about money, the salaries. So I have some information. This will help anybody. You doing a study, anyone? Try to bump up the wages? You know? So I'll give this to, if it's all right, Representative, you want it up front? Schoharie County, you would note that a starting caseworker there makes what I do after 18 years with Otsego County. So with this, I think we all think about going home. You probably should close the county building at noon and get people, because you can't park on the streets anyway. That's probably why nobody's here. But I don't live that far away. We live in an old mobile home. The part that bothers me about this is that I know that if one of us were to become disabled, we'd end up in a nursing home because that home is not handicap capable. The home that you took from Maria was meant to be her home in her old age and a home for her mother where she could go and we could take care of her. That was all taken away and wiped out. An occupied home taken and sold to another employee with a lot of influence that somehow, after 14 months, it had to be transferred, like instantly, just like that. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak? Hearing none, move approval of the minutes for the January 3rd meeting, which are available online.
So moved.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Presentation of petition communication notices.
I have a letter from the SAS staff and volunteers asking for the county for support. I have the monthly report from of ATI program services rendered by Catholic Charities for the month of December. I have a notice of claim deforest hunt against Otsego County Sheriff and Otsego County related to the claimant was subject to excessive force by correctional officers resulting in claimant suffering a broken hip and other injuries in 2017. No amount of claim was stated. I have a notice of claim, Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company against County of Otsego and Kevin Eustis regarding an automobile property damage. The claim for damages is $5,974.39. I have a notice of intent to file claim, estate of Sean Christopher Dill, Administrator Amy Dill versus State of New York State DOT, Otsego County and Otsego County Highway. The claim was for inadequate caution signage and excessive speeds, negligence as excess potholes on the roadway. Claimant was damaged in amount to be determined in filing of the claim.
Special presentations. Jordan Clemens.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
All right. First and foremost, I'd like to thank everyone for giving me the opportunity to speak today. Got a lot to cover, and I'll speak as quickly as possible. If I say something that you don't understand, please don't hesitate to ask me what I just say there. But basically, we're going to go over a quick little history of districts, not much. Get into some programs that we're doing and some what's coming down the pipe kind of ideas and thoughts. So again, districts were formed in 1935 after the Dust Bowl. They really saw that the way people were running the land was not adequate, and because of the Dust Bowl, the SDS Soil District, or SCS, Soil Conservation Services, was formed, and from the SCS, soil and water districts were formed. Our district was formed in June 15th of 1944. So basically, the county at that time deemed that they wanted one, went to the state, said, we'd like to form a district, and so be it. 1944, the district was formed in Otsego County. Basically, the staff of Otsego County Soil and Water covers a variety of fields, ideas. We do education outreach. We do best management practices on the agricultural community, with the agricultural community. We also do stream restoration work. Everything and anything that could affect the environment in Otsego County that deals with soil and water, we're at the front doing best management practices. Basically, we coordinate with federal and state agencies. We prepare long-range plannings. We secure necessary funding through our allocation here, as well as going after grants on the state and federal level. We also receive funding from the state level as well through our performance measures. Our performance measures are something that we have to obtain every year. I have to do filing into the state, and it's a competitive process, which seems kind of unique, but we have to compete with other soil and water districts to get our funding. So it's not a sure thing. It's broken down in 3 levels: Part A, Part B, and Part C. Part A is essentially we have to show that we expend $120,000 of non-state funding to get 60 of it back. So for every dollar we spend, we get 50 cents back. Part B is a project. It's been at $6,000 for as long as I've been with the district. And that usually is something that's formed by the district. So this year, I decided that the $6,000 project would go towards our butternut watershed study. So essentially, through that study, we're doing culvert assessments for fish passage, sizing properly for the watershed. So that we'll see a little later, the watershed encompasses 6 towns, and it doesn't encompass every part of the town. So I'm going to take that $6,000 and we're going to do the culvert assessing for the culverts that are outside of that watershed within those 6 towns. So we have a complete view of those towns. We perform needed work, evaluate success of work performed. And I'm going to admit, that bottom one is kind of a loose one. It's a problem with funding, and a problem with time, and a problem with staffing. We truly don't go back and check every project that we do install. Not because we don't want to, just because, like I said, the funding and the staffing doesn't allow it. Real quick, that we have a 7-person board, which is unique. There's not too many districts in the state that have 7-person board. Most of them are 5-person people boards. 2 county board reps, which we all know is Meg and Michelle. It changes. It could change every year, but I do like to see consistency as well. And then we have 5 other people that represent the Grange, Farm Bureau, ag landowner, and non-ag landowner, and a alternate. So Les Rathman has been our chair for the past 6 years, and Meg has been our vice chair for the last 2-3 years. So I'd like to talk about a little bit of our programs. Our biggest program right now that we have in our district that is funded by the state is the AEM program, which stands for Agriculture Environmental Management. So we are not regulatory enforcement. So we do not go on farms and slap hands saying you're doing something wrong. The majority of our people come asking for us to participate. And so what we do, usually they come, they're interested in grazing. They're interested in manure storage. So then we come to the farm. It's a 5-step process. The first step is basically getting the information of the farm: how many cows they milk, how many beef cows they have, how many goats they have, how many acres they have. And with that, we then identify that information. Our second step is then to identify the issues on the farm. So, John Brown might have interest in manure storage, or grazing, but he also has a manure problem. I can't come onto a farm and just address that one problem and turn a blind eye to the other problem. So we do a whole farm review. We prioritize the problems through that step 2. The step 3, which is called the 3A plan, then lays out how we're going to fix those issues. And the farmer's involved in all of this. I'm not going to sit there and provide a fix and the farmer has no input. If he or she is not going to do what I've put down there, what is the purpose of doing it? So the farmer is involved with these steps. So through that process, and I'd just like to give you a couple of quick stats here. Everybody can see the graph. We broke down, these are AEM participants by district, all right? These are not total farms in your district. These are people that are participating with our program. As you can see, the city of Oneonta is kind of left out, have no farms there. But everywhere else, town of Oneonta has a few farms. These are the amount of farms that are participating in our program. If you add those up quickly, that's right around 400 farms that we have participating in our program. So AEM is the planning stage of our program. It plans out. Now we come in with Ag Now Point Source monies. That is a grant opportunity that is given through Ag Markets of New York State. So I love my statement of planning sets up funding. So these 5 years shows that we've brought in $3.3 million for these farms. I can't emphasize enough, a vast majority of that money is passed through. It doesn't stay in my office. They're 5-year grants. So the problem is, we'll have, kind of cuts off my slide here for this last round, we received 3 grants. We received just under $1 million this year through Ag Now Point Source. That can sit for 4.5 years before they expend it. We encourage the farmer, if we're going to do this, they want to jump on it as soon as possible because nothing gets cheaper, it always gets more expensive. It's a 75-25 cost share, so that $3.3 million is 75% of the actual cost of these projects. I might open up a can of worms here. This is the funding through Ag Now Point Source through our districts. Mr. Wilbur's district had 90 farms in there. We've brought in just shy of $250,000 to the, not all 90. It's the, we have no deciding factor of who gets funded. Every year for the past, going on 4 years now that I've been district manager, I shoot for 7 to 8 grants to be submitted through this program. We've been batting 500. If I continue that, my face will be in the Hall of Fame if I was batting that kind of average. All right? So 500 is 50% is pretty good success rate of getting our grants funded through the program. Michelle's, if I can remember, was roughly 30 farms. We've brought in just shy of $1.2 million to those farms in the last 5 years. All very good things. Another large funding source that we go after is the Water Quality Improvement Program. It's administered through the DEC. Between 2015 and 16, we brought in just shy of $250,000 through 3 stream projects, a hydroseeding program, and a buffering project. Last year, the 2016-2017, I was awarded a grant for the salt shed that's going in down in Butternuts for the county. This year, well, my numbering got a little messed up there, but we have, basically we have 7 grants that we're applying for. 3 of them, if we don't get, 4 of them, if we don't get funded this year, this will be the 3rd year I've submitted them, I'll drop them. It's kind of a 3 strikes, you're out kind of thing. And I don't mean to reference baseball all the time. All right, so what do we do with municipalities? We do hydroseeding. We work with municipal flood projects, stormwater, education. All these we provide to the municipalities at no cost. So any grants I receive for them, go to them. Any permits that I work on for them, there's no charge. Which, I want to provide these services, but it takes time. And so, permits are very, they take time. It's not a overnight kind of thing, but we do ESI, emergency stream intervention training, is key for these highway departments. The reality is our highway guys are usually the first ones out after a flood. I'm not looking to make these guys professional stream repairs, but they're the ones that are going to get that water flowing back in the channel so that I can come back later, evaluate it, and see what truly needs to be done to fix that problem. We will never stop flooding. That's something that everybody has to understand. And there's that thought process, we throw some riprap on the stream bank, it's going to stop flooding. It will not stop flooding. But what it's going to do is going to leave that bank there after the flood water recedes. We do culvert sizing. That's huge too. That's in my mind, that saves money for your individual towns, villages. There's no sense of putting an undersized culvert in that's just going to get blown out the next rainstorm. There shouldn't be too many 2-foot culverts on the roads today. They should be larger than, at minimum 2 foot. But that's where culvert sizing comes in. Working with permits, we've done everything from nuisance permits for beaver removal up to doing stream restoration work, culvert replacements. Hydroseeding's always been popular. The 2006 flood brought in money so that we could afford to buy a hydroseeder. and we put many miles, many hours on our hydro seeder. And then we're always, I mean, we have funding this year. We're going to provide a ESI training, intervention training, probably mid to late June this year, which is associated with our butternut watershed study that we're doing. Which leads us into our NIFWIF I-4 project, which is the butternut watershed study. So that black circle there encompasses the watershed, butternut watershed. It's our first watershed plan in our county. Actual watershed plan. This is the way that funding is going to go. We could sit there and see the problem with our eyes, but it doesn't exist until it's on paper. This is the way the world is. I got to be able to reference a study that says, yep, this is a problem. That young lady there, Erica Capuano, is our buffer coordinator, who's also our watershed coordinator. Her whole purpose on my staff is to design and implement and push the CREP. That's CREP, not creep or crap. It's CREP. All right, and so her whole purpose is to do that. The EPA through our TMDLs have put a 10,000 acre goal for all the watershed, Chesapeake Bay watershed, which is 15 counties in New York State, 2 in Pennsylvania, for a goal of 10,000 acres. We had a meeting 2 springs ago, and we were only sitting at like 2,300 acres. The goal has to be met by 2025, and when you're talking about a 35-foot wide buffer, that takes a lot of stream footage to get those goals down, which is why I've hired the individual I hired to do that. It's not 10,000 acres in our county, but the whole watershed. But Otsego County is doing its portion. Otsego County Forestry, brand new. Hopefully, contract will be passed today. But prior to that, we have, it's a 3-year contract, and I was afraid that if I didn't get someone in right away to start the process, that we were going to be behind the 8 ball. So we went ahead, did our hiring. We hired a gentleman by the name of Joe Sweeney, who has 2.5 years of prior experience with the DEC, graduated from ESF. He has hit the ground running. This map, kind of hard to see, I know with the lights on, locates all the county forest lands in the county, which vast majority of them are between Hartwick and Middlefield. We do have some sporadic pieces throughout, some down in Unadilla. But this gentleman has hit the ground running. He has been on 6 different parcels and has hit 5 of them, done boundary lines. Actually went to the Rose Hill site. We provided a quick write-up on that, what he found there. Gave that to Bill, so he should be passing it forward, or I can pass it directly to you folks. Basically that it's been hammered pretty hard and there's not really much left there in the sense of valuable timber. And what's nice is that land that butts up to that is owned by OLT, Otsego Land Trust, so that's pretty nice, convenient for looking for someone to sell to. All right, so I'm going to hit a little bit on what's called the WIP. There's soon to be 3 phases of the WIP. And it pretty much stands for Watershed Improvement Project or something to that effect. That one too. So basically, in these phases, first phase is identified basically what our goals are. New York State has finally signed on to the Chesapeake Bay initiative, and so everything that I do, I have to feed into this Chesapeake Bay model, and it helps us meet our goals. And so these goals right here, I wish there was a point on there, these numbers here are set for nitrogen, phosphorus, and sediment. I know it got kind of clustered here, I don't understand that, but basically these values are millions of pounds per year. So for nitrogen to come out of New York State, we're only allowed 8.23 million pounds, which sounds like a lot. Truly isn't. It truly is not. And so it identifies agriculture as one of the big reasons that we have these issues. The first phase, and Danny, I'm more than happy to have you butt in if I say something wrong here, it really emphasizes agriculture. It kind of doesn't look at wastewater treatment centers, kind of avoids stormwater issues. It really heavily hits on agriculture. So everything that we do on these farms help us meet these goals. Nobody knows what the punishment is going to be if we don't hit our goals. Could be financial, means that we're not, Otsego County as a whole is not available to get certain funds. We don't know what the punishments are. The deadline is 2025. So they come out with phase 1 in December 21, identifying our goals. In January of 2013, they did a phase 2, setting our goals where we should be at 2017, which was last year. We met our goals in nitrogen, phosphorus, but the sediment, I mean, I just stated what the sediment goals were, but I believe sediment we were low on, or high on. And that comes from our stream issues. And that is one thing that we definitely have a lot of in this county. We have a lot of stream issues. I'd say in my 10-year career, I've been out to 1,500 sites. Between my predecessor and myself, probably submitted probably 10% of those into grant funding and probably only received 1% of the funds, which is still a lot of money, but we're not hitting a lot of sites. There are counties that are within our watershed that have stream programs that I'm going to bring a gentleman in from Chemung County to the next, or in the April SWEC meeting. I've asked Karen to put us on the agenda, and he's going to talk about a stream program that county has. Stuff that, you know, again, this phase 3, it's pretty dragged out here, but basically they're not adding any additional load reduction requirements. But they're going to start enforcing local buy-in, and local buy-in means the county level, the individual town levels. And again, no one knows what the punishments are going to be, but we need to act. I don't want to wait for the problem to occur before we start doing something. Let's get ahead of the curve, which is what I've been trying to do in my 4-year stint here by implementing, you know, buffers. Everything we do with an ag project, we have buffers that we put in, so that at the end of the day, when these punishments come down the line, whatever they may be, we can come to the table and say, hey, listen, Otsego County's done this. We've been ahead of the curve. Delaware County is a good example, and that's what I'm trying to follow. They have a larger pocket to work with, but at the end of the day, we're going to be at the table saying, we've done this. Our partner organizations, I don't want to read them, we have many. I consider Otsego County as a partner. Absolutely, you guys are wonderful partners. So what does the future hold for my district, but the county itself? We're trying to keep pace with the demand of our services, remaining flexible to meet emerging needs. Every day, something new comes across the table. Being responsive to citizenry and interest groups, being innovative and aggressive towards regards of funding. I don't turn down any money. I go after everything I possibly can. Developing stream, last two are huge that I'm going to be trying to push here heavily, is developing a stream program that involves the county, towns, and village highway departments. Developing a flood commission for the county, towns, and village. Let's face it, folks, I mean, we're due. It's been a few years, we're due. We had flood 06, 11, 12, 14. Floods are not going away. And for us to sit back and not try to do something, we can't stop flooding, but what we can do is try to lessen the impact that they cause. And that's what we need to do. You know, our due diligence in that department. We can't turn a blind eye to our flooding issues. Basically, do you have any questions? Yes, sir.
Jordan, where was the Butternut watershed selected for the study?
So again, the Butternut was selected, basically, hellbenders were located in there. Hellbenders are giant salamanders. If you've never seen them, they're pretty intense looking. And they are a great indicator of water quality. If you have hellbenders in your water system, then, so that, you know, it's a good thing and a bad thing. We're at the top of the watershed. Top of the watershed always has the cleanest water. Problem is the funding's never geared towards keeping clean water clean. It's getting dirty water back to clean again. So this was a step in that process of, hey, this is a great body of water. Let's go after it. And the funding was there. $100,000 we got for writing that plan. Yes, sir.
Jordan, just as an FYI, I was at the Westford Town Board meeting Monday night.
Yep.
And a question had come up about one of the forests that the county owns. We call it, I think, 5 Points.
Yep.
There was a sign, according to an individual there, that used to say Chase Forest or something along that line. And there is no sign there anymore, so I'm just bringing that as an attention. I saw you bring the sign in, so I thought it was, yes.
The very first property you went to, that Joe came to, the person was overlapping. They were purposely putting their posted signs up. The gentleman was phenomenal. He said that the reason he put his posted signs over the line was he was having people, he's sick of people dumping deer carcasses and trash. So as soon as Joe made contact with him, he was happy to move the signs back, and we made these signs here, that's no dumping, and then these signs here that, you know, indicate the border. So the biggest issue is, Joe has been hitting the sites that he sees that have been hit with paint. He's re-hitting those areas where there is no paint, but he knows where the line is. We're installing these signs on the tree. Problem with putting paint on a tree is that once that paint's there, that's a legal paint. But we are putting these signs. These signs can be removed easily. So again, partnership here, highway department, produce these signs for us. Pretty easy, quick. And so as Joe's doing these, he's hitting these up and putting them out there, which is huge. And then the other, as you indicated, we actually finally came across a document. We were able to get into the forester cabin. No one knew where the key was. So we were able to actually get the lock undone and put a new lock on there, and we actually were able to get a hold of some files. It was kind of disheartening to see after 40 years we only had 6 folders of information, and nobody knew where any other information was. But we got into the forester cabin and found a cabinet there, and that had a lot of stuff, but a lot of older stuff, nothing too recent. But we were able to find that document that actually had the actual names of these forests. So yeah, we'll be making signs.
Thank you.
So I have a question. It's concerning the phase 3 WIP.
Yep.
I know that USC and DEC will take the lead on it.
Yep.
Maybe Southern Tier East will be helping, but I think it would be imperative for USC to make more effort to contact our county.
Oh, sure.
So that we do know and we are prepared if we have additional responsibilities under the WIP, then we're best positioned to assist the district.
So we are part of the USC. My predecessor always said we are the USC. I always say no, we're Otsego County Soil and Water, part of USC. Which is great, yeah. Years past, up to about 5 years ago, we used to get funding directly from the EPA into USC and then disseminate to the districts. But Lord knows we need more layers of bureaucracy, so then it has to go to the DEC, then to USC, and then to us. But yeah, USC is the driving force. They have their own staff, and then they have districts like us that are part of it, and so yeah, that's a great way to do it. And I would, if the board would see fit, we definitely get people up from USC to talk more in depth of it, because like I said, we're going to have to start taking ownership of our issues here in the county in the sense of stream issues. Yes, sir.
Where does Ag and Markets get their money from to give out?
Through the EPF fund, Environmental Protection Fund. That comes federally.
Does that come from? How do they get that? How does the federal government get through taxes?
I would have to think.
Appropriation.
Yeah, I would think it'd have to be some sort of appropriation. I don't know where the money directly comes from.
Okay,
Keith, I
the next
apologize.
question is, we all know kind of farms, a lot of farms are going out. If this money is spent on a farm, is there any stipulation on that farmer how long he has to stay into farming, or can he get the work done and a year later quit?
Yeah, there's been farms that have, as they're being signed off on through, because anytime we put a project in, we have to have a rep from Ag and Markets come and certify that it's in. I have to say, yeah, I'm afraid to say that we've had a farm where the project was done and the cows are no longer on the property. It's, there's no sign thing saying that we're gonna stay in business. Nope. It's not based on finances, it's based on environmental needs. But you're right, farms are going out, but then, what's nice is, in Springfield, we've lost 2 of the biggest county farms recently, but they're staying in agriculture, just different sort of agriculture.
Well, that's another subject I'm not particularly, I'm not gonna say, but it's, it's stay in a form of agriculture.
Yep.
But it's also a bigger form of commercial business, in my opinion.
I guess ultimately you have to decide I'd rather see any form of agriculture than maybe, I don't know, J.C. Penney's sitting there, in my opinion, but yes.
Well, I was just noticing that the trend, like he said, that actual people involved in traditional production agriculture are decreasing, but there are the offbeat and more niche types of agriculture.
Agriculture's not leaving,
So
it's just
agriculture's
evolving.
staying,
Yep.
but we also have the water and sediment issues that can be addressed at the town and village level.
Yes.
So there's an opportunity for us to move ahead with your guidance
Yeah,
with
yeah.
those towns and villages,
Yep.
as well as with the county culverts and streams.
Yeah.
And then my other thought was moving forward with any kinds of development that might involve wetlands, or would that be something that would also be an opportunity for your district, say, to work
Provide
with a
services.
wetland or?
Oh, yeah, we always provide wetland maps, services go out, we always can provide maps, lines are just on maps. The biggest thing is getting that occurring agency, DEC, or Army Corps to come out and actually identify it, but, you know, your statement on agriculture, it's not leaving our county, it's changing. You know, late 80s, we had over 500 dairy farms in this county, we're down to 146. But we have more cows now than we did back in the 80s. You know, we have more beef farms, we have 176, 178 beef farms. If you told somebody back in the 80s there were going to be more beef farms than there are dairy farms in this county, we were top 5 in the state and top 10 in the nation for amount of dairy farms. It's just changing. Look at the price of milk. I mean, even our organic farms are hurting terribly. It's changing. So, and to Keith's point, yeah, it's going from one form of agriculture to another. And I guess your personal opinions on how it is how it is, but and we have a lot of agriculture in this county still.
I have another question.
Yes, sir.
A lot of this is no-till crop land.
Mhm.
Is that good for the soil or not? Because the soil is getting compact more and more because you're not tilling it up. I mean,
So actually, it's the opposite. So with traditional tillage, you're only working with like an 18-inch layer that you're turning over constantly, and under that it becomes hard and compact. With a no-till, you're not disturbing that soil. You're letting the roots of those plants they're actually aerating the soil. They're making the avenues for water to actually penetrate the soil. And there's a lot of science behind that. I'm by no means an agronomist, but the no-till market is huge. The science behind the no-till is huge. And to be quite honest, through my Part C funds this year, we're kind of thinking about purchasing a no-till seeder to provide to rent out to individual farmers.
Also, isn't that leaving a lot more pesticides in that 18-inch diameter than letting the air get to it and get rid of it?
Again, Keith, I would love to. I'll provide you as much as I can in the science behind it. But absolutely. I mean, Cornell Quadrant Extension would be a good avenue to give you all that kind of information. But I know that there's been millions of dollars spent in this state on those practices, and there are positives to it. Now it's not traditional corn, it's not traditional soybean. I mean, they work a lot of different things into there that you can plant to help provide those you know, air pockets, non-compaction issues, stuff like that.
So if I can make a request, I think the number of AIM participants by district is a really good, helpful data point to share. If you could provide that more often to select, that'd be great.
Yeah.
And then, you know, also in addition to the maps, you can just put the number in each district.
Yep.
By map. You don't have to put the location for security purposes.
Yeah.
But it would be helpful for us to know, that way we understand where the practices are going in.
Correct.
In comparison to where the most sensitive water.
Yeah, and I can't say enough. We rank our grants for Ag 9 Point Source ourselves. We're number 37. That's the number the state gave us. So we have to do 37 dash, and then we 1 through 8. But I've had grants. I've had the number 2, 5, 7, and 8 grant funded, not 1, 3, and 4. I don't know why. It's just they decide what's the biggest bang for their buck, and that's how they ultimately fund it. So yeah, I'd be more than happy to provide that information as we get them. Yes, ma'am.
So I just wanted to make a comment about the hydro seeding program.
Yes, ma'am.
If sedimentation is our biggest issue, then I'd like to look for ways to make that have the municipalities utilize it more often. And
What a wonderful idea.
I recognize that there's some reluctance to utilize the service that's there from, you know, in my town experience.
Yep.
So I was just wondering, so if you said you're going to have this training for emergency stream intervention
Yes,
training,
ma'am.
that might be a good time to try to bring up that program again, because what I'd really like to see is more
So
towns.
every year in January, we send, since I started, I've sent a letter to every county highway superintendent and town supervisor, imploring them to please take the map I provide you, take a highlighter and highlight the roads that you're gonna, either you've ditched recently, you know, late last year, or you plan on ditching this upcoming year. So that we have a database, because to me, it makes no sense to send my technician out looking for these sites. And I will tell you, in my 10 years, I've had probably at best a return on like 5 or 6 downs.
Yeah.
So, and my point is, if the town of Evanston sends me 50 miles worth of road ditching and I get nothing from anybody else, Evanston's getting a lot of hydro seeding this year. And so I try to disperse as much as possible, but I can't afford to send somebody out to do that. But here's another thing that I've contemplated on doing with our Part C funds is purchasing of a trailer, throwing that hydro seeder onto that trailer, bolting it down, and then making it accessible to the towns as they need it. And providing that training. It's a 3-lever machine. You can, 15, 20 minutes of training, you become a wizard at hydro seeding. So that's another avenue, because that's a 2-person job. I have to have someone driving, I have to have someone spraying. And that's the standard. So it leaves me and my contractor Bob, the only ones that can drive that vehicle. I don't have the time to drive that vehicle. So, that's another source that we can provide services, maybe that the individual towns could come actually pick it up and use it.
Can you share that data with us, as which towns have responded? Because I'll certainly talk to my 2 towns.
Oh, yeah. Lawrence is actually pretty good usually.
Edmondson
is phenomenal. Oneana, town Oneana.
Towns in my.
Yeah, oh yeah.
So if you could send that letter out to all of us at the same
Even
time.
though, yeah, no
Then
problem.
we know it's out.
Yes,
and
sir.
We can bring it up when we.
Yes,
go
sir.
to town meetings.
Absolutely, but I can guarantee you that letter's gone out for the last 10 years.
And I just would say that if there was some, so we have a letter.
Yes, ma'am.
And then we have our county reps
Yes, ma'am.
advocating for the program at the meetings that they come to.
Yep.
I think one more piece of the puzzle might be just, if there is anytime you can do training.
Yes, ma'am.
Not on how to operate the vehicle, just about how the resources there. Sometimes an in-person thing works better than a letter with
Yes, ma'am.
highway superintendent.
Yes, ma'am. Any other questions, concerns? Yes, sir.
So there is no cost to the town for that hydro seeding?
No, because I've been blessed, I guess, with writing grants, so I'm,
Okay.
yeah, so
So
through the
there's no
grants.
reason why they shouldn't be using it?
No, no. Now, I will say, we get 100 loads a year. Once those 100 are gone, if the town wants it, then I ask to have them cover the cost of the materials. 100 loads, I mean, you're talking a load, 1,000 gallons, which takes 800 pounds of mulch, 100 pounds of seed, and 1,000 gallons of water. It covers a third of an acre. An average dish is only 3 foot wide. So that covers a lot. So we have a lot of, but we've had instances where towns need to cover up their old gravel mine. We ask them to help cover because that's quite extensive, and then sometimes the grant is specific to certain things.
Didn't we put money in the budget for this year?
Hydro seeding?
Didn't we do something in through soil or through,
Plastic even. Plastic, forestry, and my normal allocation.
but I thought the funding was gonna be gone for the hydro seeding.
If I don't,
Or we were gonna
If
buy
you-
another one.
if you want to throw one in there.
No, but I thought there was no grant money available.
Not for hydro seeding, for the plastic. Plastic is the problem.
Okay.
Plastic came out, it was a huge hit. Cornell, DC had tons of money, and then it hemorrhaged big time.
Right, through SWAC, Keith, the recycling of the
Plastic.
plastic,
Yeah.
agricultural
Yep,
plastic.
yep. Yeah, but that, I mean, to tell you the truth, the hydro seeder is getting old, we definitely need to look to replace it. Any other questions, concerns?
All right.
Thank you,
George.
appreciate it. Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, reports of standing committee. Let's start public works.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I thought this would be a great time to talk about this 80-page, no, I'm only kidding. I will keep things short and sweet. First off, I would like to welcome Janine Fletcher, who will be our new hire, replacing Kathy Clancy at Highway and handling snow and ice and other functions down there. So welcome her to Otsego County. Just a couple of quick clarifications too when it came to the 242 building project evaluation, as I will, and the highway potential building. I would like to just clarify that we are not looking at selling at this point. It's an evaluation of potential. So I got a bunch of inquiries about the 242 building, when are we selling, how much, all that kind of stuff. So I'd just like to clarify what my request was, or what I hope to bring before Public Works, is simply to get an evaluation of the potential that that building has. When we're looking at a $200,000+ security project for the 242 building to get it to a point where it would be secure, we have to weigh that with the value, in my opinion, of the building. The highway building, again, potentially, if we were looking at upgrading, what would be the value of that real estate? So I'm just in an evaluation phase as far as that. With the weather being the way it is, I think we really should all thank our highway and building and grounds folks. They did a great job, will do a great job today. Take it easy going home. And I would also like to thank my Public Works Committee. They've done a great job. They showed up early in this mess to deal with some other issues. Highway, building and grounds, things are moving along. We do have some personnel, I'll use the word issues at highway. Mainly we don't have enough, so we have to kind of see how we can start filling the gap. And with that, is short and sweet. I'll take any questions and or concerns from the floor. Thank you.
The Tower Asset Management Program, we had a conference call in October with Crown Castle to manage that. Where are we on that?
So Rob O'Brien and myself have spoke about moving forward with that. Rob has not that we switched our responsibilities, if you will, but Rob seems to be not only with the new tower sites, but with the current tower sites and the intricacies of that. I wanted to bring him in as a valuable source of that information. And we really haven't moved on that recently, so that probably ought to be under what I would call the building and grounds sort of things in asset management that we should move
Because
forward
we
with.
can just, they have a contract already that we can use.
Yep.
And the other thing was broadband, as part of the strategic plan, last year was assigned to Public Works, and I think in the middle of the summer, Keith had asked if you could contact some broadband providers to come speak to the committee. And so now I'm on the Technology and Strategic Plan Committee. I was wondering if there's any, if that has been done, if we are anticipating any other providers coming in and speaking to.
The answer is no, but again, and I'm glad you did bring that up. I will add that under our asset management side of things, under Public Works, and do that. The Otsego Electric, Rural Electric, I think they just got their
Phase 3 awards.
Their Phase 3 awards. And the one thing when the gentleman came and did the presentation here, he had the map of the area, and I haven't received it because part of that was in. Huh? Yes, I remember us asking for it because part of that too was part of the Decatur area and things of that nature.
They're starting in Lawrence area.
Okay.
In this spring, and he was saying even there's the way the state has designed this program, he may be able to deliver to this business here, it'll be covered, and then the other one across the street won't be, which is typical, but, so.
I've noticed they're putting up a bunch of new poles in my area, and there's really no obvious reason why they're replacing the poles that are away from houses, so I'm kind of wondering if it isn't lining up for that project.
Yep.
And they did receive their Phase 3 funding, so that is good. You got some other providers. Clarity Connect would be a good one to bring in. They do have some service in part of the town. The governor announced that he's...
We need to get after Spectrum too,
well, yeah, they're the other provider.
yeah, see what the plan is, instead of running everybody out. Whoever contacted the gentleman from Otsego Electric, could we remind him?
I did.
Those maps,
Yeah.
could you remind him?
I think it'll be important to discuss kind of how the maps are laid out in Public Works too. to the extent that we can understand that they are confidential, but it'll be important to kind of strategize based on that, to kind of say, okay, well, where are they planning on expanding, what are the timelines? Before doing that, I understand that they have a pretty narrow deadline to get all their lines up.
Right.
And so kind of.
Andrew?
What, he was, I thought from the presentation he made, he had said some of those maps were proprietary.
Yeah,
that he couldn't share them, period. So I don't think Public Works is gonna get a hold of their proprietary information.
Probably not.
But I thought he said he was gonna supply some
He was
maps.
gonna give something,
Yeah.
but he,
Some are.
they're, yeah.
Those are the ones I meant.
He showed us.
Yeah.
I think that maybe, now that the Phase 3 awards have been awarded, that he'll be able to give out more information, so
Okay.
it would probably be useful to ask. And then just to add, so we've got Otsego Electric and then Clarity Connect. I think it would be good to reach out to Spectrum. They have 2 additional years than the rest of the state, which I'm not happy with. And then the southern tip of the county, Otsego, Butternuts, Unadilla, most of that's gonna be serviced by Frontier. So, and I'm definitely interested in hearing what Frontier has to say.
Well, the other thing I just wanted to add is that in that presentation, he clearly had implied, Otsego Electric, that they have other partners that would be whatever low band, broadband, whatever his terminology, that would be other utilizing the infrastructure they're gonna build, which clearly he's not gonna be able to tell us about, but that's a whole nother element to this that, you know, maybe offers more promise than any of this.
The governor indicated that his goal is to have 100% coverage in the entire state with broadband. That's possible, but hopefully he's got some funding to back up that.
5 years ago, we said by 2019, everybody would be covered.
So hopefully he's got some funding in this new initiative to provide to back that up.
There's not a
I have one other thing,
No, I
is
know.
for Pete, parts RFP? The parts store RFP?
We're still looking for the, for the Gillies, store down there, looking for, well, Bill has requested if we had the original agreement, that was, agreed to and signed. And as near as I can tell, Keith, if he reached out to
I
you
don't
for.
think there ever was an RFP before.
There wasn't.
And the thing that I have, and I think Bill has that I shared with Bill, was the presentation that they did to us from before. So I don't know why you can't take that and write an RFP out of that. That's my.
I think it'll actually probably move forward, rather quickly now. Bill was wondering if there was any, according to him, any intricacies with the agreement.
I don't think
If there aren't
was ever a
any, I
contract,
think we
was
just
there?
move forward and put out the RFP.
I mean, I guess originally when he contacted my office, I thought he was looking for the RFP for that, but you're saying that there wasn't one, because I didn't find one.
I don't think I think they came with a presentation
We decided to go with it.
That
There was
was
no
it.
RFP done at that
No,
time.
no.
And that was quite a while ago.
8 years
I mean,
or
that,
so.
Well,
that
the presentation I had
predated-
was 2006.
Yeah, I was gonna say, it predated my being on the board for county attorney. So yeah, I don't have anything to offer other than what Keith is referencing.
So I know there's been conversations with Onondaga, the purchasing agent, to develop one because there hasn't.
Right, but we need to develop it
Right.
here, and based on what his needs are.
Okay. Governmental affairs.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had the IGA meeting. One of the highlights of that meeting, we had Jody Zagrebski from Otsego Now come and shared with us his director's report from Otsego Now, a little bit ahead of, or following his director's meeting. It was a complete listing of projects that they're involved with and brought us up to speed item by item as we went down the list. I found it to be very interesting and a lot of information, a lot of projects, different timelines for each of them. He also told me that he's in the process of updating the strategic plan for Otsego Now, so I'm sure that that's something that may or may not be up to date as we speak, but should be coming very shortly. Also, we did some resolutions regarding transportation, replacing a bus, and then the county gifts the other bus to ARC. I would like to inform everyone that the highway asset management grant was awarded to the planning department for an additional $94,000, and I know that Karen Sullivan mentioned that some of that might be going out into the town or village level to assess those roads, those surfaces, following up on the presentation that we had last summer. Also, Otsego County was named lead agency for the tiny homes grant and project, so we're going ahead with that. We worked over the community events grants application and put it completely online. I have to admit that I did field one phone call from a lady who said she completely couldn't do it online. So Brian Picorni very kindly provided me with a paper application and I mailed it to her. So we are filling in the gaps on that technology curve. So far response has been strong, so the deadline is the end of February, so we still have a couple more weeks and we'll be looking those over at our March meeting. But so far, our February meeting is scheduled for the 13th at 9 a.m. and I just would like to make everyone aware that we will be having Jen Gregory from Southern Tier East come to present for us, talk about what Southern Tier East does, how it might be something that could provide services for the county, which we did join them. We put the money in the budget to join. Just how can we get the best bang for our joining that organization. And we also will be doing some discussion on the county management concept. Ellen is going to come and just start the process. We've attended Professor Benjamin's talk, so kind of bringing that home, and everyone is invited to come and listen and see, add some ideas. It's a big concept, trying to work it down to manageable pieces, and everyone's input is valuable, and I look forward to hearing from you. The 13th, 9 a.m. is our meeting. Any questions? Andrew?
Just regarding the county management exploration, is there any time frame with that in the event that it has to go to a referendum?
I think that we're I wasn't really at that level yet, so I'm kind of standing here at the bottom of the hill and I'm not really sure how tall it is. But I figure we'll get there step by step, so maybe those are some roadmaps that we could lay out. And
it's hard to say at this point, really.
Yeah.
Kathy? The Otsego Now used to pay half the STIR.
Yes, and they are.
Agreed to do
Yes,
that again?
they are. Mm-hmm.
And the highway asset management monies that are being moved down to the town and village level, have those towns and villages been?
No. That's just, it's like we have the money and it's in the planning out stage. Right, that's as far as I could understand. Danny?
So two questions. One question, one comment. For the highway asset management plan funding, will the city of Oneonta be eligible?
I don't know. We'll have to, we can bring it up to Karen. As I said, maybe I overspoke that, but it was something that Karen had mentioned. So I'm not clear on the details.
Thank you.
Yeah.
The other comment I had was kind of in regard to the IDA reports, and I know that in the director's report they had discussed the meetings with NYSEG. And, maybe Andrew, since he attended the board meeting, could update us on that too, but like, that whole discussion in the report was kind of, interesting to me.
Yes, and actually, Mr. Zagrevsky came to the Hartwood Planning Board last night, where I was, and he discussed that ongoing conversation with NYSEG, and if there was anything that you could add to that, that would be great, but it's something that's definitely happening.
At the board meeting, it was mostly about the issues with NYSEG and upgrading the gas lines, and it's 5, maybe almost, 5 years away, possibly longer, and that, now they're kind of, this is more related to the railroad, what's the terminology for that?
The rail yards.
Rail yards, right.
Yeah.
That the IDA has the ownership of. That was more related to the couple companies that looked at the site, and basically there wasn't, the energy needs could not be fulfilled with the current infrastructure. And so that's when they, obviously going back to NYSEG, and so now it seems like they're more seriously considering compressed natural gas, where it would have to be trucked in on a frequent basis would be the only way. Some of the factory kind of production facilities that might be sited there.
Thank you.
Yeah, Andrew, or Pete, I can talk to you.
Just a real quick side note, because I forgot to say when our next Public Works meeting was.
Oh, yes.
So before, and I do apologize
Oh, that's okay.
for
Take the
cutting.
floor.
So our next Public Works meeting will be February 15th at 2 p.m. in the second floor conference room. Thank you. I apologize.
No worries. Andrew?
So
And
is
then
NYSEG, sorry, just back to the
Yeah.
NYSEG thing, are they just speaking about upgrading the existing infrastructure, or are they also considering expanding service area?
Just upgrading.
Yeah.
That I think is what the main conversation that Jody, that's what they're reporting at the board meeting. Of course, Jody and the rest of the board would have a far better idea, but there were a couple, I think at least Tom Romeo, and I don't know who the other board member, but at least Tom and Jody met with NYSEG, and I think Senator Seward was there as well. So it was from what they were describing at the board meeting, a lively discussion.
And ongoing, so.
One of the first issues they have to resolve apparently is the ownership of the roadway. Apparently that was deeded to the IDA, and the city needs to take that over, and they're reluctant to do so. And so that's a big issue that needs to be addressed before anything else can move forward.
Keith, did you?
Yeah, just on the highway asset, Eric came to the highway superintendent meeting we had in December and said that this money came through, that they offered it to the towns, and I would imagine the city, well, we don't have a city superintendent, but all the highway superintendent, so they're aware of this.
I'll check on that for you, Dan.
Oh, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Megan. That's really nice.
Between hearing from the two committees, I want to point out a theme here that has been going on, we've been hearing, between, and it's infrastructure and lack of. It's the lack of broadband and lack of energy. So if we want employment in this area, we need to take positive steps to address both of them.
Absolutely.
I was at the IDA board meeting as well, and they talked about Senator Seward being there and being all in, but one of the things they did discuss was in the last rate hike before the PSC, NYSEG got money, and now has not delivered on what they said they were gonna use this money for, and they haven't expanded at all. I did ask them what it meant for the senator to be all in, but when he's sitting up there, they should not be granting rate hikes and then not holding them accountable to provide the service that they said they were gonna do. And that's one of the big problems. So they didn't seem like they were overly enthusiastic about jumping in and solving our issues.
My understanding is that the expansion of the DeRuyter pipeline, the cost of that project spiked. Jody was told one number, and then it turns out it was much higher. It went from like 50 million to almost 100. And that's kind of nice. It is balking at the cost of that expansion, and then it's also electric infrastructure coming down as well, as I understand. So that's going to be, there has to be a way to either identify sources of capital to improve the infrastructure coming in, because the idea of bringing compressed natural gas is going to be really a tough pill to swallow for a lot of people.
You've got a choice, employment or no employment.
Yeah, I mean, employment, you got to
I
do
mean, they
it.
definitely said two companies were ready to come and said no.
Yeah, there was, that was in the report right there. There's one was going to provide 175 jobs.
Yeah. And another one, I think,
They
was
couldn't
like
get the
300.
gas capacity.
Yeah.
And follow up on your first comment, Andrew, with the county manager, the county executive is elected and requires a mandatory referendum. Depending on the manager situation, appointed may or may not require a referendum. So until we define what that manager is going to be, we don't know if we are allowed. And it's not our choice. It either requires a referendum or it doesn't.
Right.
So until that's defined, we don't know if we need to file for a referendum.
Yeah, if it takes any of the powers away from the representatives, then you need a referendum, if the job description does.
And I would just say that since we're considering the manager, we're considering term limits, or some of us are considering term limits, and also term length changes. All of those require referendums. I'll contact the Board of Elections and find out what the deadline would be.
Thanks.
Yep.
It's relatively early in the year. so
Yeah, it's like
unlikely
August
to have that.
or before we
Well,
need to have it out.
It's set by statute, so if you want to be on the ballot, you'd have to look at what election day is this year, but then you count back so many days. And if you talk to the board, then they need a few days in advance to get it ready. So a rule of thumb is probably 60 days.
Anything else for IGA?
Will Jody be coming every month?
I don't know if he's coming this month, but I think we'll definitely invite him every other month, and it would be great if he could come every month. He has a lot of,
Yeah.
very busy schedule, so we'll try and get him up on a regular basis. I thought it was a great interchange that we had that day.
It keeps us all.
Human Services, Mr. Representative Kuznick.
Mr. Chair, I'm also interested in being brief given the weather, so I'll do my best. We met on January 12th, and as we do, we've done every meeting in the 6 years I've been on this committee, except for once, we filled vacancies, and actually had some conversations about that as well. Penny Gentile is working on grading the positions of the casework positions so that they make more sense. They've been set for a long time, and she's going to adjust that. We lots of vacancies being filled. Fiscal condition January. That's the information is fairly scant, but so far it looks good. We spent a lot of time going over the basic functions of the various parts of Department of Social Services for the new members. I'm sure every committee did that in one way or the other in January, but that was a big part of our meeting. We did a bunch of other odds and ends that you could read about in the minutes. Violence and Prevention Program Services, Indigent Burial. The Clark Foundation gives us a grant every year to help with help families in the communities for issues that are not covered by the vast array of state and federal mandates and services that the DSS works. There are lots and lots of cracks to fall through, and the Clark Foundation gives a grant every year for the Department of Social Services to help fill in those cracks, and so our thanks to them. Next meeting is on February 12th at 1 p.m., third floor conference from upstairs, and you are all welcome to join us then. Andrew.
Gary, can you just speak briefly about the 30 cases and the New York State review of the 30 cases, and that only 4 passed correctly, and they're coming up with a corrective action plan?
The preventive audit, yeah.
The preventive audit,
yeah.
yes.
I can get lots of more detail.
No.
But if you've ever been audited by a state agency, you know that their job is to come down and define mistakes. Whether it's the pencils aren't lined up straight or not, or whatever. And believe me, I've been involved in Medicaid audits where it's on that level. So there's been nothing. It's nothing that Eve has had to call me about. So that's kind of a line that when you cross, it's pretty major. But I don't know specifically what we were cited for, but you're going through the process, and it's not major.
Thank you.
Any other questions? It's public safety. Representative Frazier.
Thank you, Mr. Carroll. We met on January 22nd. Our emergency medical service director, our cleaner, came in. We made several appointments to different boards. You have them today. Fire advisory, emergency medical service advisory, deputy fire coordinators. We also had a discussion about moving forward with the training center improvements. We need to move on this in order to get it finished in this building season. The money is budgeted for, and that was an action item in our strategic plan. We also discussed the false alarm that happened in Hawaii, where 911 went out and about a missile strike, and how do we prevent something like that from occurring here in Otsego County. We had a conversation with him and Rob O'Brien about that, what protocols are in place to prevent that. Bruce Maxson came in, our public defender, to discuss his operations. We have a meeting scheduled to discuss the funding from oils on the 15th, I believe.
Yes.
Correct?
At 11.
That'll be productive. Sheriff Devlin came in, discussed several contracts we approved, purchase of equipment. We spent some time on, again, on the MOU with the 911 county, New York State Police, and the sheriff. We will be discussing jurisdictional protocols this coming month. All the committee members should have gotten both copies of the MOUs. The sheriff stated he had no issues with the draft from June, but the one that we signed in November he had problems with. We're currently reviewing those. We discussed the needed upgrades to the public safety building. There's some money in the budget for that, how to fund it, and the scope of the projects. Sheriff Devlin presented a written response to the PSLA committee report on the investigation. Denise Alver, Child Advocacy Center, we funded training. 911 Director Rob O'Brien reported to us on the system upgrades. He forwarded a map of all of our towers and our proposed ones. Every board rep should have gotten that if they weren't familiar with those. We approved equipment purchases and contract renewals. We talked to Rob about a lot of those contract renewals, and we'll see them today, are annual. And like we did in DSS, we cut them all into thirds. We try to, the renewals, do them every year, but we try to extend them out to a 3-year contract, a multi-year, cuts down on the amount of time and money it costs to write those. We discussed the MOU with the New York State Police and the sheriff. Conversation is ongoing. We approved filling 2 soon-to-be vacant dispatch positions. We then listened to some concerns from some county residents regarding our county codes office. We discussed those concerns with our code officer, Tony Gentile. I believe there's resolutions have been achieved. We discussed the tiny homes project, inspection fees, replacement vehicles, and his department goals. We then supported a resolution today that is on our agenda today to request for state funding for the treatment services for inmates suffering from substance use disorders. This is resolution 79 today. This is for money to come to the counties to help treat our incarcerated inmates. We will meet again on February 16th at 12:30. The minutes, we changed it after the minutes were written, so I will attempt to answer any questions.
I have one. There was a survey sent out about, supposedly to the fire departments about moving the training center, correct?
Yes.
At a Springfield fire meeting last night, they never received the survey. So I'm wondering if everybody got it?
I will ask that. That's the first one that said they would do that, but
We only had 6 responses.
Art did say there was only 6 that responded.
Well,
He was told to follow
can't
up on
respond
it.
to me, that's why. I don't know if he emailed.
We directed him to follow up on the ones that didn't, so I mean, I will ask that, but.
Mr. Marietta?
I just wanted to ask, Ed, I know you're working on 18B attorney issue, and I know that, that your committee passed a resolution to forward on to admin for the reappointment of Bruce. And I'd like kind of a two-part question. One is, I know that there was some previous work done on the 18B analysis versus hiring another public defender. And actually when I was on the committee in 2016, I know there was some work in 2015, but even in 2016 when Len was chair and Pete and I were on the committee, there was another kind of discussion and proposal review at that point of that same issue. Then I know the committee changed in 2017, and here we are in 2018, and you know, it seems like, you know, now that's 2015, 2016, 2017, now we're into year 4, and this issue seems to kind of keep going in a cycle. And I'm just wondering, you know, and Bruce's appointment seems to always get caught up in this issue, and the information seems to keep getting rehashed year after year, and I'm just wondering if we're hoping to kind of finalize this and also, you know, his appointment as well.
First, his appointment is 2 years, so it's not every year it gets caught up in it. Meg and I felt, a very productive meeting with Bruce the other day. I'm not sure that at this level, we direct the department head to hire more people or to put people. I think that there's their responsibility to say what's the best for your department. Bruce has not made that decision, and correct me if I'm wrong, he would like to lean one way one day and one way the other day, and I think that decision needs to be made, and I think that after our meeting the other day, there was direction reached, okay? And you want to add anything to that?
No, I feel that it was a productive discussion, and I do feel that we defined some of the issues that you have identified, and I have and Ed and I both let Bruce know that we are very open to guiding any changes that he would want to make, guiding that discussion going forward. And I do believe that it will be forthcoming.
That being said, the 18B is a moving target.
Right.
You know, and from one year to another, there may not be a need for it 1 year, so it's low.
Right.
If there's a huge increase the following year, so a lot of that's not in the public defender's control.
Right, they can't project it.
Dan, you may be able to speak better to this.
Yeah,
But I mean, that's.
However, I do think, this is my personal opinion, and by the way, I think we gotta be careful where we're going here, because we're talking personnel. My personal opinion is, we need another public defender, as opposed to keep hiring 18B attorneys.
That was part of our conversation the other day. And where do we not have designated public defenders that we have high costs in those courts? Those should be the ones I think we're targeting, and that was the goal. So I know we have one in Unadilla, if it's New Lisbon or whatever, that we have a high need historically, 4 or 5 year average, then maybe we should find someone for that instead of hiring out the 18B list.
It's going to be all the courts basically that lost their public defender, whatever year it was.
So,
because as a city judge, I can tell you that if somebody comes into the court and asks for or acknowledges that they need defense, that they can't afford it, we have no way of checking their resources and verifying that. They're going to be assigned an attorney. So almost in every case, they get an attorney. So the cost is going to be there. So you're far better off supplying a public defender that works however many cases are assigned as opposed to someone that is paid per case.
Ellen, you still want to comment?
I was up at NISAC with, and Bruce and I went to the oils meeting, and the new part of oils is not only are they, you know, counsel on first appearance, but they intend to set a cap on the types of cases and the number of cases that public defenders are assigned.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So, and when they were, this was last year's meeting, I'd asked them about the cap numbers and then just like laughed. I'm like, oh my God, we're so far over that now.
Well, my understanding was they were going to be far more liberal on who was assigned an attorney. Am I correct?
That's what Bruce has reported.
Yeah, but the numbers of, and what types, if they're felonies, and you talked to us, they've been talking about that, and also some of the stuff that 2 or 3 months ago that we were talking about, they were contradicting up there of what they're gonna pay for. Yeah, maybe more defenders, but no, nothing, you know, if you need to build and they're not gonna pay for that, you know, and there's different interpretations going out.
I mean, a judge can get himself or herself in hot water for not assigning counsel when it's warranted. So they're gonna err
On the side.
protecting themselves.
I mean, I can comment somewhat more on that, but I mean, so what's happened now is Oil's put their funding into the budget, and the governor, I think, accepted it except for a certain percentage, which I'm not sure of. So Otsego County's gotten an allocation of funds. So this meeting that Bruce and I and Ed and Dave are gonna go to on the 15th is 2 people from Oils are gonna come out. They're gonna say this is the funding that's allocated to Otsego County, but it comes in like 3 streams, and one is caseload caps. One is what they call quality improvement, which is stuff like computers and other things of that nature, and the third one is for CAFA. And so we're gonna sit down with them, find out what the funding is, and then they're gonna help the county establish some priorities, so it'll be a preliminary discussion. But I know from, you know, that Bruce and I have talked, and we had 2 meetings with all the stakeholders, and I think the county at this point has some ideas about where we want to put those funds, but again, you need to look at what funding is out there. The issue that you bring up about who's going to be qualified, that's a slightly different issue, and that goes somewhat to Oil saying this is what we'd like, not necessarily people are questioning whether they have the authority to actually impose that on the judges. So that's a discussion that is continuing to happen.
Okay, anything further? Elton Ed, Representative Stanley.
Thank you, Chairman Bliss. So we have a very new committee this year. 4 of the 5 members are new, and 3 of the 5 are newly elected. So it was a pretty lengthy first meeting. We spent a good portion of it really hearing from department heads and Coroner Terry Knapp what they do in their various offices. Lots of Q&A. We were also invited to tour several of the offices just to get a feel for the work. In turn, I believe Representative Clark asked several of the department heads if they could update their department's information in the 2016 Department Reference Manual, just so we all have up-to-date info on the departments. We approved a request for Tammy McDonald to host professional development training for OFA staff. We approved several contract requests from the Department of Health, including one for a immunization action plan, one for blanket purchases for vaccines, and then Heidi Bond also informed us of a Living Healthier Expo that will be hosted in April at the Foothills Performing Arts Center. I don't have the date here, but I'll definitely provide more information next month. We're all welcome to attend. I believe they had one there last year as well. Don Smyers from Port Health Cooperative spoke with us. He is seeking a resolution from the board to request additional funding from New York State. The committee was generally in support of that, but the language wasn't exactly worked out. We had some concerns about some of the language in his template that he presented to us. So we did conditionally pass a resolution in support of that, conditioned upon improving that language. I don't think that's been done, so that's not on today's agenda, but we'll certainly address that in next month's meeting. Community services, we heard from Sue Matt, approved several contracts, also approved the filling of a social worker free. Sue shared us a very helpful list of her goals, and if members haven't, or if reps haven't looked at that yet, I'd encourage you to take a look at it. It's in alignment with a lot of the things that were in the strategic plan, so very, very helpful to focus our work. Sue also spoke with us about her seeking that additional funding for the staff in the jail. We didn't have a resolution ready for the committee, although the committee did support those efforts. But as you heard from Representative Frazier, That is Resolution 79 that was passed through PSLA, so it's getting in front of us today one way or the other, so that's a good thing. We spoke with Terry Knapp, coroner, and we approved extending the contract with Bassett under the same terms as 2017. We spoke with Penny Seeger from the Office of Employment and Training. She discussed the new social media policy of the county and how her department can comply with that. We finished the meeting kind of with some homework. I asked that representatives take a look at the strategic plan and the various objectives, initiatives that were proposed in the plan, and see what catches our eye and what the committee should be talking about this year. And one of those initiatives that was included in the plan is the opioid crisis. And the committee agreed that we wanted to invite Julie Dostal from LEAF to speak with the committee. And she has confirmed that she'll be speaking with us this month. Our next meeting is February 12th on Monday at 9 a.m. at the Meadows. Any questions?
Just a comment about the manual update that you requested. That's excellent. We talked yesterday, department head meeting about that, and that was published in 2016, 2015 information, and the entire thing needs to be updated. I think everybody's on board with doing that. And Brian Corney is kind of spearheading that. Of course, he's the one who published it. So.
Great. Thank you.
Just two things real quick. One would be, there's been some discussion about having Cornell Cooperative Extension report to SWEP rather than Health and Ed. Obviously they have an education component, but they also have an environmental component. If we were to make a switch, how would that take place? Is that?
That's in the bylaws.
Okay, so that would be part of the bylaws update?
So I think I mentioned to all of you that I'm working on cleaning that up and making some of those changes to present to everybody. We can debate them and everything. That's how it will be done.
Okay, and secondly, this is an issue that I had meant to bring up in PSLA, but it relates to Health and Ed, which is the idea about, in terms of funding for the opioid crisis, the idea of class action litigation with pharmaceutical companies. I know there are federal class action suits taking place right now. I know while we were at NISAC, one of the, I think it was Ulster County executive, wasn't able to be there because he was testifying. I'm very interested in the county pursuing that, and I guess I did send an email to Ellen, who I believe said, and I'll let her help us, that the next step would be identifying a law firm.
Yes, and I think some guidance on how you want to do that. I've spoken to different counties. Some counties it's a full board, everyone sits down and interviews. There's two main firms in reality, and different counties have used different ones. So, I really couldn't say which one is better or not. Both firms presented at the at our meeting in December, the county attorney's meeting, and it's just what process do you want to adopt? Some counties have particular people pick one, some interview both firms themselves, or designate admin, or you just tell me how you want to do it, and then I will make arrangements to get the two firms to all in, or however we want to do it, like video conferencing.
Okay, so would that, what committee would be that best for that?
Is that best for Health and Ed, or is that PSLA?
I think it's admin, actually.
Okay.
So if you want that to be for admin next month, then.
Can I make a request right now that be on the agenda? Sorry, Betty.
On there.
Sorry, Nick, there you go.
Oh, that's okay, you're invited.
At the same time, can have you consider, I think, we weren't one of the 5 counties in the Harold Harding case, but certainly if they're gonna nickel and dime us on implementing this and not funding it, we should get full funding like they got. And maybe litigation from the other counties that weren't included is something we should consider at this point.
Well, it will really tell when we meet with them on the 15th. We'll find out what our funding allocation is. And you all have spoken about one of the big problems is that they will not fund any construction on the county side. And different groups have contacted them about it, and they keep insisting that their mandate goes in this one direction, even though for many rural counties, I mean, it makes more sense to construct a courtroom at the jail, which a number of counties have done. But right now, they're saying, well, that's on you.
Just occurred to me, it's a possibility, I don't know if we can do it or not, but every year, there are the JTAP grants for the local courts. If we're gonna be putting a courtroom in for example, this has been spoken about, in the front of the jail, maybe we can access JTAP funds.
We should put in our own application, Dan.
Try it.
Yeah,
And those
why not?
they're generally awarded because there aren't a lot of people applying for those.
Yeah. The other thing I'll tell you too is that, so in the counties that have theirs up and running, OCA, if they've identified a space for a courtroom, like OCA won't pay for that, but they have been, at least so far, willing to provide like the recorders,
right.
Dan, all the equipment that the town justice would have. They've been willing to do that. I think even providing like a bench and some of that.
It would not, if they do. I've had a lot of renovations done to my court when I had it, when I was sitting. It would not require a lot of renovation for that front office.
Yeah, and so just so the rest of you, I mean, I don't want to pick up a lot, but the sheriff has been looking at other counties who have constructed courtrooms. I'm using that word very loosely. They're rooms,
right.
They're like an office. And so one of the ideas right now is to actually use the conference room. But, we've got a long way to go.
I thought it was a lobby.
Or the lobby.
Right.
The lobby, or I think there's a conference room there, Dan, in
There
any
is.
event. It's something that he couldn't let them use 9 to 5, but.
It has to be accessible to the public.
Correct.
So.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Okay, I just got an email from Rob O'Brien, I think everybody got it, but the state awarded the SICG grant, State Interoperable Communications. Otsego County was awarded $684,600. And the PSAP grant today we were awarded 157, almost 158,000. So that's money that'll go into our tower system.
Great, that's great.
Good news on that.
Yes.
Good, anything else? So we're now down to solid waste.
This is gonna be short.
Yes.
We've been on January 16th, we're gonna find a resolution 62 to improve our contract with $33,000 for electronics. Jordan Clements was in, he pretty well had all his report. The only thing I'll add is May 12th is a egg plastic collection. May 10th is one, and October 11th and October 13th. You're going to find another resolution to put some people on the Ag Farmland Implementation Committee. And we went over the recycling numbers, the solid waste numbers, and approved, the committee approved continued use of the planning department Facebook page in accordance with the recent issue of the social media policy. And we meet again on February 20th at 9:30 at the Meadows, and I'll try to answer any questions.
Any questions for the chair? Admin, Representative Kennedy.
And Keith's report was very short compared to our meeting, but I'm going to say I just did a tiny bit of math. The admin committee met for 3,600 minutes, if I did my math right. So even if I talk for 3 minutes and 60 seconds, that's 0.001% of the time. 5-hour meetings are long. But for the sake of condensation, we did discuss personnel issues, purchases, and funding, as well as transfer of funds at our meeting on the 21st. And just to touch on the public defender issue, there were things that came up. We went into executive session. The upshot of that was that we came up with the meeting with Ed and I that we had with Mr. Maxon on Monday. So I feel that we're in a good place following that meeting. It's always worth having the discussions. I'm an advocate of discussing. So I think it was time well spent. We also discussed Alan Ruffles, deputy treasurer, but failed to approve him, but we did that this morning. So we moved for approval, and that passed this morning at our short meeting prior to this meeting. Also, I would like to ask that we pull resolution number 60. There was a mistake that was passed forward to us that we need to amend prior to passing that resolution concerning prescriptions with Church and Scott contract with the jail. I will take questions. We did a lot that day. Many of the resolutions are in our consent agenda today.
Any questions? Okay, hearing none, we'll go on to special committee. Negotiations.
When's your next?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, our next meeting, thanks, Michelle. It's the 21st at 9. It's Wednesday. Oh, and just a quick comment on our next meeting. We will be doing a lot of that bylaws adjustment discussion at that meeting. I've reserved the first half hour to discuss. I'm going to discuss.
Negotiations, Representative Fraser.
Thank you, Chair. We've had 2 meetings with the corrections tonight. They've been very productive. We've exchanged proposals. We're going to meet again on March 5th. The CSEA, we met once already. I think that was productive. We are scheduled again for this coming Monday to meet with them. I don't think I can answer any questions.
Okay. Great. Performance review, both city.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We met on January 11th. Our job this year, among a few others, but our main job this year is going to be to end the year, hopefully, with a salary system, a perpetual salary system for embassy employees. And we spent a lot of time on our first meeting getting everybody up to speed as to all of the terms and the how many unions we've got and how that relates to M&C and a lot of the details and technical issues that we all need to start with. We've had some brief discussions of we still have to hold the idea of having a consultant do this, you know, as a possibility at this point. That's probably not going to happen. It'll be more likely to be an in-house job. As I said, we set a baseline. Where are we, and where are we compared to similar counties, and what do we mean by similar counties? And so we did some work on that. We had a fairly long discussion on how to integrate merit raises into the system, so that it's just not everybody gets the same thing. Under that, we discussed department goals and how to measure how those goals, how to measure those goals and the pursuit toward the conclusion of those goals. A lot of work to do. We're meeting tomorrow at 9 a.m. Is our next meeting. So I invite you all to come and join the discussion. And, we'll see where we go then.
Gary, just,
yes.
Obviously I'm on that committee, but I think I just want to emphasize that the idea, I brought it up a couple times, and just, I know we talked about it at the committee of having an overall, whether it's a training, you know, under the umbrella of whatever it looks like, but where all the department heads and all the county representatives are coming together for, in this case, I think it was a discussion about goal setting, if we could find a presenter and, you know, if we had to pay him or whatever the circumstances are, but I just want to make sure that, you know, throw that out to everybody, you know, that's something I think we should definitely pursue and hopefully address sooner than later.
Yeah. Yeah, and Dave, I don't know if you're going to mention this, but yesterday we had there was a meeting of the department heads. I think it was very productive, very positive, and there are lots of technical issues that we talked about that I think we can address and move forward. There are 15 department heads there, and so I was very pleased to see everybody working together for 2 hours to solve, you know, real serious problems. So and that may be a venue for that kind of training.
Yeah, I agree. We talked about that, and that needs to be a priority because the committees are set up. Performance review and goal setting was obviously in the first year of a term, people are on the committee that have no idea what. So we don't evaluate them in that first year. We evaluate in the second year, and then they set goals, and it's our duty and obligation to check back and to see if the goals, how they're meeting the goals that they've set, but also what tools that they need from us to help them achieve those goals. And that's what this first year should be about. So it's important that we have that training and everybody's on the same page in this first year.
I agree. So it's something we can move forward. There's a couple other training opportunities, I think, that came out of that would be helpful as well.
But that really is the purpose of that committee.
Correct.
And I think, you know, the salary study has been adopted by that committee, but we really need to spend some money on what is the primary reason this year that we should be doing.
So if you work to identify somebody that can do that training, that would be great.
Yeah, we'll work with Penny.
Yeah, that's that probably.
That's not too hard, because that's a fairly standard kind of thing that people, that organizations need to learn.
Any other questions for the chair? Any of the special, I guess you call them special committees, but other committees that people are on that want to report? Anything?
Well,
Yeah, go ahead.
the strategic planning committee, I just thought you know, it goes hand in hand with, and I can't remember if we were having strategic planning meet before last year or not. I mean, report out at the board meetings. I don't think they were.
There was before admin and Ed would talk about it because they're charged.
They went hand, right.
Last year was just to look at the strategic plan and to decide which committees would be dealing with the issues assigned to it. I'm not sure this year what our charge is.
Strategic plan went in with IGA, became part of IGA.
No, it didn't. It became part of something called
Technology. Yeah,
So
technology and strategic plan.
which doesn't exist, so we need to meet and
Right,
have.
that's part of the bylaw change.
Well, but if we're gonna meet as technology, we need to, correct?
Well,
Have that established.
I think it's still technically has the strategic plan implementation committee name, right, officially.
At this time, right?
At this time, until that bylaws change would be made, but I know Kathy couldn't be at the first meeting we had, but it went hand in hand with performance review and goal setting, and that's just a quick thing I'll say, and our next meeting is on February 28th. We talked about doing a simple survey, which I just forwarded to everyone. Danny put some questions together that we would set up as an online survey, and it really goes back to this whole discussion about goal setting, and basically the survey, what we talked about at the meeting was asking department heads and the county reps, have you reviewed the strategic plan? Are your goals, that are in there, are they, basically, are they in the budget for 2018? I'm trying to remember the three questions. And then the second was, the first is a kind of a self-identifying, are they a board or department head member, so we can somewhat track the answers. And the last question was just, are the things that are priorities that are not in the plan? So are the things that kind of have fallen out of the cracks maybe of this whole strategic planning prioritization plan we have that we want to capture that we need to address now. So that it would be a very simple survey.
Yeah, I mean, the purpose was really to establish an anchor for that committee so that we can begin to set a course of how we're going to operate and how we can strategize as to what priority items will need to be implemented in 2018 and work closely with the other standing committees to kind of figure out you know, how best to start, you know.
But we aren't gonna be micromanaging the other.
No, 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 it's,
No.
it's just to establish like a path moving forward, get everybody on the same page, facilitate dialogue, but no, in no way micromanaging, because we're not really in a.
We had minutes, yeah, we
more
had
of an
minutes.
advisory board.
The minutes were sent out to us by Alicia or Carol. I have them on my email. Hopefully everyone
Right
saw
here.
those minutes? Yeah. That I'm not recapping them, but there's a whole bunch. Basically, the high point was the survey.
Yeah, I got mine today.
Yeah. So the next meeting is February 28th for that committee.
Okay, that's.
Any other questions for that? Meg, did you have one?
Well, I did attend another land bank meeting on the 1st. They've been awarded some of their money. They've actually taken possession of some of their money that they were awarded. And they do plan to be reaching out into each of the FGUs, the foreclosing governmental units, that they deal with 6, and we have 2 representatives on them, on that board. And so they do plan to be reaching out into the, Karen Sullivan's planning department had some projects ready. So now that they've gotten their money, they're ready to start the next process of actually taking possession and moving ahead on more projects. And they've done a couple of demolitions, but their authority that they report to is really looking for more. So hopefully that will be forthcoming. We are also having our first audit up there, so they're becoming very compliant with the Paris regulations and the ABO. So, but I think that altogether that is in good shape and definitely moving forward, if moving forward kind of slowly, but there is progress being made. And on my other DMCOC, this is Cooperstown, they have a new executive director, they have a new office manager, they're completely new staff, and both of those new hires seem to be very capable and excited to do their best on spending their allocation, promoting the county.
I just had a question. Who's the second representative now? And at some point when I don't know if they finished, the land bank finished the strategic plan, but when you do, maybe you could forward that to the whole board. That'd probably be helpful for everyone
Okay.
to see
I
that.
will see if what they have together for a strategic plan.
Yeah.
And I think that in our packet, we have our second
Oh, all right,
member
sorry,
right
yes,
here
you're
with
right,
us.
you're right.
Yes,
yeah.
thank you. I was surprised, but thank you, because I do have a lot of interest in the land bank, especially for Oneonta. We have a lot of
That's
delinquent
great.
properties there.
Yeah. I look forward to having you be on that board, share the long meetings.
I have a question on the money that they got. You just mentioned demolition. Right? Who paid for the demolitions that they did?
Well, they got their first chunk of money, and then they started spending it. And I may be having some gaps in the narrative. But then the next chunk of money was withheld because they didn't have any projects to spend it on. But they couldn't make any projects to spend it on because they didn't have a staff to hire a project manager and budget. So they did a couple of things with their first allocation of money, which is where they did the demolitions. And then they got their second chunk of money, and now things are...
They've hired staff?
They've hired staff. Well, they're still in the process of hiring staff. But they do have a project manager now, and that facilitates a lot of movement ahead on the projects.
I know when they were first formed, they had asked for potential projects, and Karen sent them some, so...
Yes, so they're still working their way down that list. But I do think that it's moving in the right direction.
Anything else? Any other?
Just as a quick side note, for purchasing questions, and Meg, myself, and Dave will be traveling to Onondaga Friday, meeting with Andrew Trombley and the purchasing folks from Onondaga. My goal is to get better acquainted with the purchasing department, procedures, issues from there, and hopefully add some value back to Otsego County by handling some issues that come up as far as purchasing goes within Otsego County. And then ultimately, maybe even come back with some recommendations that would better suit us when it comes to purchasing. So thank you for offering to go with me as well as traveling companions, and we'll see if we can't, I'm going to see if I can't learn something, I guess is where I'm going. So they've got a tough task ahead of them, I can tell you that.
On that, the purchasing for, are we still not doing in-house repair and maintenance at the highway garage?
That is correct.
So, is there?
Outside of highway department.
Outside of, right.
So,
Right.
I guess, when we get to this aggregate part of purchasing, we should probably, and I know it was suggested, and Andrew sent down something from Cortland County to you last month, about if you're gonna do it, go out for services, we should get an RFP or we should get some sort of agreement so that we're getting a standardized rate and a volume discount, and it's then Cortland County's. So is that the plan for the foreseeable future? And also, while I'm thinking of that, I read somewhere, and I don't know if it was ever adopted, that the thought was that department heads, if they needed something, and I did see an email about somebody needing an inspection and couldn't get it. But to me, this is just my opinion, I don't think it's a job of the health and ed department head and the DSS department head to take care of maintenance for their car and find a location where they can take it. I think that's the job of them to notify Rich and Bill, and that they should be dealing with it rather than Eve having to call around and say, I got this. And we should know at the beginning of the month how many cars are going to be running out of inspection this month. And so you don't have any, we could run into a problem where we think it's only X amount of dollars being spent at a certain place because it's divided so many places.
I would agree with when we as Otsego County owned and operated all the vehicles, yes, that was the more or less the way it would proceed, because we had the individual there taking care of the maintenance, so when it came to inspection, those type of things. We're kind of morphing away from that, so that's a good question as to moving forward, if and probably highway should still take care of those issues until we transfer over to totally all.
Yeah, once we get to all enterprise,
once we get to all enterprise, agreed. Yes.
Well, weren't we going to hire this fleet management company for the rest of the vehicles? Wasn't there talk about that?
There was talk about that. That's why I'm asking.
Alan came up for about $5 a month.
Right.
To manage the rest of the fleet, so that would leave highway right out of it.
Right. Well, I still think it takes maybe a point person at highway or that to.
Because we're still working off parts that are at the parts store, or tires and.
There's still, correct, there's still inventory down there, you're correct, that should be, and here again, you bring up another great point about the plan moving forward to get rid of those things before we transition totally to.
Right, because that's part of the issue, is the parts store, if we're not doing in-house maintenance, we don't need as many parts, and that changes that RFP.
Correct.
That's one of the reasons that those two things
Correct.
are being discussed together. And we had discussions with Andrew about that over the last couple of weeks, and we'll continue.
I'm sure we'll have that on Friday as well, yeah.
But maybe in the interim, all the requests should go to Bill and Rich so that it is centralized. And
It probably, yes, yeah, it probably
Social
should.
Services has the biggest fleet. Eve has somebody in her office that's acted very, I can't remember which her name was, but has acted very efficiently. CSAT is basically a fleet manager for social services cars.
for years, but even when we were doing it in-house.
Right, even when we were doing it in-house, she was doing that.
We should get a rate for oil changes and oil change, how much are you gonna charge us?
Right. Any other special meetings, I guess, that need to be reported on? I just quickly note the NICEAG conference last week. Several people went. Kathy went. Liz went. Danny was there. Andrew was there. And
Adrian was there.
Adrian, correct, was also there. And also Alan Ruffles was there the first day, and Andrew Chrisman.
And Michelle.
Michelle.
Michelle was there, yeah.
I shouldn't start naming names. Anyway,
Just
there were
a little
several
more
people
if I wasn't there.
It was very worthwhile. I was there. I went up all 3 days. Some were there for other days. But a lot of good information. Thanks to everyone who went to take their time out to go to that, because I think it was very informative. And in the future, if anybody has the opportunity to go, it's well worth it. Does anybody have anything in particular? Most of it came up already in their individual reports. But a lot of good information. Okay, move on to consent agendas. Anyone wishing to pull anything from the consent agenda? I'm pulling number 74.
60 has already been pulled, right?
60 has already been pulled, right? 67 is being pulled. Number 78.
So it excludes resolution 60, 67, 74, 78, 85, 86.
Gary, is one of those things that you want to? Yeah, you want to take a very short break, maybe? Yep. It's probably a good time to do that.
Measure the snow, come down.
No, let's try to make it as brief as possible.
I'm like, do you wait it out, do you time?
Oh, no, it's gonna keep going, sir.
Might as well just try it, right?
We established, we pulled 60, 67, 74, 80, did we pull 84? 78, 85, and 86. Any others? So a motion to approve the consent agenda? No, dispense with the... Motion to dispense with the reading of all resolutions on the consent agendas of all resolutions.
So moved.
Second? Someone second? Gary? All in favor?
Aye.
Approved? Call for action on this consent agenda.
So moved.
Andrew, Meg, second?
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. Consent agenda is passed. Okay, first one removed was number 60.
Resolution 60, authorizing chair of the board to enter into contract with Church and Scott Incorporated for pharmaceutical supplies for Otsego County Correctional Facility. Frazier, Wilbur, Stammel, Farwell, Overacker.
Who pulled that one?
I did. The amount needs to be amended.
No, we need a second.
Second.
Discussion?
So the amount, it should be 120,000. It came to, through the committees at the 108, which was incorrect. It's budgeted at 120,000, the sheriff requests 120,000. I'd like to make that amendment.
Okay.
Motion.
Dan's making a motion to amend as requested.
Second.
Okay. Keith seconded. Has money, so we need a roll call vote.
Frazier?
Aye.
Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overacker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Aye.
Wilbur?
Aye.
Koenig?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin?
Aye.
Shannon?
Aye.
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. The amendment of 60A is passed. Now we need to vote on the resolution as amended. Also requires a roll call.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. Resolution 60 is passed.
Resolution 67, appointing member to the Community Services Board, Stammel, Clark, Martini, Shannon, Lappin.
I'll second that, and then provide the amendment.
Okay, discussion?
Yeah, I was going to move and amend it. This was a confusion that, probably my fault in terms of communications. I had asked Adrienne Martini if she'd be interested in being the CSB liaison, and she was very, I knew that was her area of interest, and she's in New York. Took her to the first meeting, everything worked fine. And I didn't send out a confirming email to everybody, making sure that everybody knew we had made a final decision on that, so it ended up with my name. So my amendment would be to put Adrienne's name there and address. And yes, that's all you
And
need.
her address is?
Change.
Anybody know offhand?
41 Cedar Street, I'm not sure. You need a motion on that?
Just make sure we get it right.
41 Cedar.
41 Cedar, okay, Oneonta. So the same zip. Okay, motion for the amendment?
I'll make that.
Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? And this can be a voice vote, correct? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, now to vote on Resolution 67 as amended. This is the roll call. Motion?
So moved.
Dan, second. Meg?
This is the amendment, 67.
This is we did a roll call vote. This is the vote on the amendment.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark, Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Overacker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
Okay, 5,872 yes, 0 no's, 356 absent. Resolution 67 passes.
Resolution 74, appointing member to the County of Otsego Industrial Development Agency, Chair of the Board of Representatives.
I pulled that, so I'll make that motion second.
Second.
Meg. Discussion. The reason I pulled this was initially, the resolution read that we were appointing Representative Marietta as our representative and member of the Otsego Now board, replacing Craig Gelsman, because it was our understanding after consulting with the county attorney that that term ended when his term on our county board ended. After further research and consulting with the IDA attorney, Ellen revised her opinion and said that those two things are not necessarily tied together. And seeing no compelling, there is another vacancy on the board left by Devin Morgan, and seeing no compelling reason to remove Craig Gelsman, we would just appoint Andrew, remove the language that said he's replacing Craig, leave Craig on the board, and appoint Andrew to that position. And specifically add the language, which again, I discussed this with Andrew and he was fine with, that this term is as a member of the board, as a liaison of the county board of representatives, and that term would end if he was no longer a county board member. Any further questions about that? Andrew?
I completely agree with the resolution, and I think this is a standard we should follow moving forward, just so this issue never arises again. The one just thing that I know a lot of us have been talking about is that the board is fully populated with 9, and obviously the county representative appointment going back on with fill that board, I think just two things. Going back to the bylaws for the IDA, which the IDA's bylaws that are even on their website right now are from 2014, but they were amended last year and sent around, and I resent them this morning to everyone, and obviously we want to get them to clear up the confusion around that, because I think their amended bylaws are have much more clarified language, and I think Carol and Ellen had kind of commented on them last year when the IDA originally sent them to them and forwarded them on to all of us, because we basically have to be notified about any of their changes, and the new bylaws are quite clear that the county municipal law charges us with appointing those board members. But my quick question is, in the bylaws, it's quite clear that there's 9 board members and 2 non-voting board members. And I think we should really clarify, there are 2 more spots on that board, even if they're non-voting, which are currently not populated. And I think we want to get, obviously, I would assume this falls the purview of Ellen with the bylaws and kind of just clarifying the county's role, or you're shaking your head, but ultimately all of this is driven by Otsego County, and these bylaws are sent to us with notification. So I guess my question is, if they come to us and they're notifying us of changes, who's reviewing them? Because there are things in the bylaws like the 2 non-voting board members, so who do we ask for clarification here in Otsego County if legal is not reviewing them? And then there also are things in here around the officer election, specifically in the bylaws it states the original chairman who shall be appointed by the Board of Reps, and yet what is original chairman? Because they had their organizational meeting and they elected their officers, and the chairman was not appointed by the county reps, and nor has there been any discussion, but the bylaws definitely imply that the chairman is appointed by the representatives. The language is specifically in their bylaws. So there's some legal questions here, and I guess going through all this process of the resolution, it hasn't been clear who's reviewing these bylaws, especially the county's role in appointing the board members.
So the IDA is a specific agency that's created by state law. So there's all kinds of state requirements on the IDA. And they have to make sure that their bylaws meet those state requirements. They have reporting requirements, the Paris reporting system that you referenced earlier, Meg. So there are all kinds of controls on them. Otsego County does not direct the IDA as such. The county appoints the people on the board. Then they have to carry forward their work in accordance with the state law and with whatever grants and other funding that they get. So when they deal with their bylaws, it's important to keep in mind that you cannot change a state requirement by a bylaw. In the pecking order of things, bylaws are at the bottom. So if they were to create a bylaw that was in violation of the state law, that bylaw in and of itself is invalid. They have their own counsel who is specialized in this area. I've actually spoken to him several times, including this morning, about the resolution that is in front of you right now. He's very knowledgeable, and there's a firm in Albany that they also use, also very knowledgeable. So I do not provide legal advice to the IDA because they are an independent entity. So I invite you, now that you're going to be on the board, to bring those questions to their board and to their council, and they will be able to advise you.
So Ellen, I appreciate that clarification. So I guess the only thing I would say is that as we move forward, I think it would be in the best interest of Otsego County to make sure we're best represented in those bylaws, and hopefully you would be willing to give your perspective, and your review on, for example, I think their bylaws should specifically state that an Otsego County representative should be appointed to their board, which they currently don't, but Destination Marketing's bylaws do specifically outline that.
So I sent out an email this morning concerning that. The bylaws of the IDA cannot change state law, as I just said. So if they tried to put something in their bylaws that said, we want the president of SUCO to be on our board, or we want a board, county board rep to be on our board, that bylaw is invalid. The statute that created specifically the Otsego County IDA says in there that the appointing authority for their board is this body. You could put, if there's 9 spots on the IDA board, you could put 9 reps on there. So there's no restriction on this board placing people on the IDA board. But the IDA board, it doesn't work the other way. The IDA board cannot, by their bylaws, force the county to appoint someone that the county does not want on that board.
So, I just have a question about that. I think I understand mostly what you're saying. But the one thing I'm getting hung up on is, I believe in the first email that you sent to us all, you said that some counties do specify.
Correct.
Are they in violation of state law then?
No, the state law that created them, for example, the Erie County IDA. Okay. If you look at their specific, their specific statute, each IDA, for whether it's a county, a city, there's all kinds of IDAs, have what they call an enabling statute. That statute goes specifically to that entity's IDA. The Erie County IDA is one where it states, the IDA board shall be made up of the following positions. So it's like, I don't know what they are, but county exec, and, head of the so-and-so school district, and the this and the that. So that's why that particular IDA works differently. Ours, the only thing ours says is that the Otsego County Board shall be the entity that appoints all of the people. And I think it says it has to be from 3 to 9. That part I can't recall off the top of my head. So that's where the confusion came in. So then what happens is each entity has its own statute. At the end of almost all those statutes, it says, basically for everything else, refer back to the general law. That's where the law that governs the IDA is, and that's how they operate. They operate under state law, not under the county. And in the one statute, it says in there that a person who is serving as a result of a designated office in their own legislation, that person's term ends when they leave that office. That is not the case for our specific statute, and I can give you a copy of the law if you want.
No, that's fine. So it's the statute, not the bylaws. That's the issue. So I recognize that there's a problem in the way. So we have. I don't have a problem with this. I'm just the resolution that's before us, the amendment. But I do see that if the county board has a tradition of appointing a board member representative, and then I see 2 problems can arise. So one problem would be that if there's a vacant position like there is right now, we don't have a problem in terms of we can still appoint a board member. But if that keeps happening, we could end up with an IDA board, by virtue of politeness, that's full of board representatives, which I don't feel like is a good thing for the county economic development. I'd like to see an economic development board that has people from all sectors of various businesses. So and then the other thing would be, like, if there weren't a vacancy right now on the board, we would need to remove somebody, right? If we wanted to continue in our tradition of having a board member.
Correct, and that is why we added the wording here specifically to state in the resolution where we appoint that, in this case, Representative Marietta, that if it's in the resolution where we're appointing that he's no longer a board member.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought we were going with just taking out 3 words of this
No,
one, I didn't realize, okay.
You were handed a copy of your recommendation.
Okay, then that helps me, thank you.
I was just going to follow up on Michelle's comment with a clarifying question. So we as a county board don't only have the ability to fill vacancies, we can replace people on the IDA if we want to. Yeah, so I mean, this is an interesting discussion. You know, I love talking about the law and stuff, but I mean, for all practical purposes, we could replace the whole group if we wanted to. So if members have people they want to put forward, they can do that. Yeah.
That will.
Correct, they can put it forward, but again, it remains the prerogative of the chair to actually, a nomination can, you can suggest candidates, but the only person who can actually nominate is the chair.
And identify who would be replaced if that were the case.
Correct.
So,
Kathy?
yeah, I have a couple of things on this. That's why they're, basically when I came on, I'm like, what do you mean they've all been serving for like 30 years? So they do serve at the pleasure of the board. So even to have this shall expire when he is no longer a member of the board, he might be a member for 10 more years. There might be a new chair next year. There is always that ability to make that change. In 1978, there was a resolution to change municipal law to say that we could have, I believe it was 5 at that time, members and 2 non-voting. In Resolution 134 of 1983, went to 7 voting members and 2 of these. So these other positions, and Devin and I spoke about, I wanted to fill them, you know, so that you would have those non-voting members would have a working knowledge of the board, and then move, if there was openings, you could move them in, you know. But no matter what we decide here, they serve at the pleasure, basically, of the board chair. You can remove them at any time. Craig's appointment came in the middle of a term of a sitting legislator that was sitting here, and by mutual agreement, for some strong reasons, was replaced at that point in time, but not because it had to be somebody, you know, to replace it. So it exists that you could replace the entire board. Tomorrow I'll bring names to everybody, and this board would have to vote. And in other IDAs, you look, there isn't really, the only terms I've seen have been a 1-year term, because that's what coincides with the chair. Fact is, it's hard to find people, and that's why people stay for 30 years.
And, you know, I think it's, again, no compelling reason to, at this time, to pull anybody from the board that I see. Yes, Dan?
I know, so I have a question. Is there any formalized mechanism to vet IDA board member appointments, you know, to evaluate their qualifications?
That was one of the things we talked about last year quite a bit, and, you know, I did send out at the first board meeting, or mentioned to make nominations, and at that time, we did receive some, but, you know, it's become a moot point now because there are no vacancies and there are no plans to replace them.
I mean, it might be a good way to kind of get, you know, for the future to develop a protocol for that, just to kind of make sure that the appointments are above board, and, you know, as they arise.
Well, again, as the law now is, as you pointed out, it is the prerogative of the chair to actually make that nomination. Certainly willing to have some guidelines. The more we can, you know, a review process, I think that's excellent. And they need to identify what they would like. We can identify what we would like. And there are some gaps on the board, you know.
Definitely. It would just be good to have a constructive dialogue so that all our positions are on the table early on.
I agree. Andrew, you
again, I just, to Kathy's point, I mean, we can obviously clarify this with the IDA legal counsel directly, but again, there are these 2 non-voting board member slots, and we absolutely should be thinking about appointing those. And to Kathy's point, using that as even if they're not voting board members, it's basically a way for them to get involved and slide into voting positions. It's, you know, this is succession planning. This is correct. The thing that the county struggles with, and look at the IDA. I mean, there was a lot of turmoil the last couple of years, and the more we can fix this, the stronger, you know, the better partnership that's going to exist between the county and the IDA.
Those 2 non-voting positions are a little up in the air.
Well, that's why we want to
clarify.
Yeah, I agree.
And that's, I think, your job as our representative to work on work on those issues and bring them to us so
Fix
that
the
we can.
bylaws, yeah.
Ellen, you had something?
No, I was just going to say that, yeah, if you pose that question to the IDA, I've spoken to the IDA council many times, and he can call me.
Great.
So that's totally fine. I just don't want to dive into interpreting their bylaws, because they are their bylaws and they are not ours, and we do not supervise them, we do not create them, we do not, we do not approve them. They send them to us for, I think, consideration, and I'm in the process of clarifying that with their council. We also had a discussion about that.
I have confidence, why I'm suggesting your appointment is that confidence that you address these issues. Ed?
To kind of merge Andrew and Michelle's points there, we should have the best possible IDA, and the talents should be meshed. We have Springbrook, we have healthcare, we have all kinds of engineers, attorneys, bankers, healthcare there. We should be finding the best candidate to put into there, not a person. I mean, if these non-voting members could be our liaison, shouldn't that possibly be the alternative? I mean, do we put a board rep on there that may not have the best to offer if the IDA needs a talent that is lacking and requests us to find an engineer, find, the architect or whatever they want on there? Should we put our liaison in a non-voting position? You're telling me that that's kind of up in the air. I don't know. I'm just saying at this point we should be putting the best candidate in there if we aren't required to have a liaison on it. I mean, any of us can go at any time and attend every meeting that they go to and every committee meeting. Do we have to have a voting member on there as a board rep?
We don't have to, that's part of my understanding. But I think it strengthens.
Has been past practice, but
Has been
the last
past practice.
we haven't.
And I think
we
it
didn't think was
strengthens, I think it strengthens their presence by being able to have an actual vote. So. But I'd be interested to know if those two non-voting positions are available, there's some people that could be put in there, and it would be excellent for succession. Oftentimes that's where the voting members eventually come from. Any further discussion?
The other, about removing people, I think that that's unless there's just cause, that conversation should not be had.
I agree.
I mean, the pool of people that you are asking to serve on that board are excellent, motivated, quality people. Having the discussion that you may at any time remove them because politics change or whatever, I think is a bad conversation to have publicly, really. I didn't know we could remove them. I think it's a bad idea
Unless there has to be a compelling reason.
Absolutely.
Misconduct or something like that.
Yeah, and I never did that. There, throughout the entire time, there was suggestions to replace people.
But
unless they resigned, I did not replace them.
No, I'm just saying that.
Yeah, no,
If you remove some people for political reasons or whatever, who would you potentially put back in there? Who would be willing to go in there knowing that they may be dragged through the mud or whatever?
The same way enough.
You're lowering the bar of quality of people that you may be able to.
IDA should be not be political.
But, and even a candidate, from the business world debated on this floor that people, they're not gonna wanna put themselves up for that, They don't get paid enough to do it.
They don't get paid any.
Exactly.
Anything
But why is
But
it
their
two,
qualification should be better.
why are those two non-votings
No,
in question?
I agree.
Because according to these resolutions, it states that there's two non-voting members.
I don't know, I have not
So
looked
that
at
could be our
it, and
decision.
given everything, I'm
Yeah.
not willing to talk about it until we consult with IDA council.
And the changes had to be done through whole new legislation. We had to request the Senate to pass it on.
Okay, I think we kind of exhausted this topic. We're getting into circular conversation. So I move to vote. And this, probably the amendment can be a voice vote. We didn't do
So
that.
I don't have a motion and I don't have a second.
Okay.
I could have totally missed it.
proposed amendment, you all have on your desk, have you read it? Anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make that motion.
I'll second.
Second, Pete. This can be a voice vote, I understand. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
Amendment 74A passes. Now we'll vote on Resolution 74 as amended. This will require a roll call vote. We need a motion. Meg, second. Danny?
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark. Stammel.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overecker.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Should I abstain on this, and it's got my name on it? I feel
No,
like-
you can vote for yourself.
All right.
You don't want yourself.
I'm gonna vote no.
Dilly.
Yes.
McCarty.
It's got a conflict of interest here.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Koenig. Martini. Lappin. Shannon.
Aye.
Okay.
You did say that you had other names were given to you, so if you're considering
Let's
this, can we
finish this
get
up
the,
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. Resolution 74 passes.
send us the information on those people that, you said you had other candidates?
Mentioned, I didn't receive any formal resumes or anything which I could forward.
Economy by acting in support of projects in Otsego County that could create and retain jobs in an effort to strengthen and maintain the local economy. Now therefore be it resolved that the Otsego County Board of Representatives does hereby express its appreciation to Devin Morgan for his dedication in serving his community and Otsego County for several years and wishes him well in his future endeavors.
I'll make that motion.
Who's saying, Dan and Dan?
The entire board
Entire
already?
board? Roll call vote.
Do oral.
We can do oral,
Yes.
even though it's a resolution. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes.
Resolution 85, creating a position in the Sheriff's Department Civil Clerk number 1. Frazier, Wilbur, Stammel, Farwell, Lappin it reads, but this is where it had to be changed. Lappin's name should be Overecker. So that's the only.
I'll make that motion.
Second? Any further discussion? Okay, does this personnel, does in a way involve money, so we need to have a roll call vote on it?
To just change the
Just
caption?
to amend it, you just change
Yeah.
the name down, not on that,
Okay,
the next one.
so, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution 85A is amended, it's passed. Now we need to vote on the actual amendment, or the actual resolution. Keith, second?
Second.
Michelle? Now we need to roll on.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark,
Aye.
Stammel,
Aye.
Kennedy, Overecker,
Aye.
Bliss,
Aye.
Marietta,
Yes.
McCarty,
Aye.
Wilbur,
Aye.
Koenig,
Aye.
Martini, Lappin,
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. Resolution 85 passes.
Resolution 86, abolishing a certain position in the Sheriff's Department, Count Clerk Typist number 2, Frazier, Wilbur, Stammel, Farwell, Lappin, should be Overecker.
I'll make the motion.
Second.
Any discussion? So we'll make that amendment. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Amendment passes. Resolution 86 as amended. Motion?
Motion.
Second.
Second. So who's
You
first?
can't motion because you.
On the committee.
Oh, that's right.
I'll move
I'll move
approval.
it.
Yeah, second.
Also, we got to take a motion.
Okay, we'll go with Kathy and Gary. Roll call vote.
Frazier,
Aye.
Farwell,
Aye.
Clark.
Aye.
Stanwell.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Overactor.
Aye.
Bliss.
Aye.
Marietta.
Yes.
McCarty.
Aye.
Wilbur.
Aye.
Kotick.
Aye.
Martini. Lappin.
Aye.
Shannon.
Aye.
5,872 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent. Resolution 86 passes. Any late resolutions? So we don't have any more full.
Yes, we have one late.
Is that 74?
No, that's,
74 was
late resolution number A.
So we don't have a copy?
I had it here. I had it here.
Thank you, Kevin.
It goes in there. A, B, C, D.
Well, I'm not really wild, but I think it's wild, but I mean, this is pretty kind of ridiculous. Yeah, I need to ride with him. But I have like a really lightweight car, it's not that great, so I mean, I'm just gonna. I'm not bothering anybody in my
Are we ready? Any objections to entering late resolution A? You have a motion? We can come- Okay.
So late resolution A will now be 93, authorizing chair of the board to enter into an agreement for professional engineering services for the Bridge New York culvert replacement contract and designating a project manager. Overactor, McCarty, Wilbur, Farwell, Lappin.
Second.
Any discussion? Mr. Oberg, would you like to explain?
So, adhering to the LSDA, which is the Local Services Design Agreement that is set up by Region 9, we are simply following, in essence, that procedure. We are designating the superintendent of highways, who in this case is going to be authorized as our project manager. That project manager can be anybody that we authorize, but one that, of course, that would have the ability to look at those design services and be able to get the correct company for the project in mind. We also, and I'd like to thank Representative McCarty for acting as our responsible local official. I'd like that duly noted. The other thing that has come up that has been, I think, a little bit of an issue is, and this is per Region 9, and this is the money that is come through us either through a federal or a state grant. But it basically adheres to what they call the QBC, which, again, these acronyms, which are qualifications-based selections process that is set up by the federal regulations. And it is a process for procuring, obtaining, hiring engineering services. Here's the caveat with this. Price cannot be a factor in the selection process. And that is something that seems to, this is per Region 9, this is their requirement. And it states specifically, price cannot be a factor in the selection process that we would go through for design services, for engineering design services. The fee for services is negotiated along with the scope of services after selection has been made.
So why do we want to go with this process?
Because they're giving us $324,000 to the state.
To use the LDSA?
To under the Bridge New York and or culvert, the money that they are allocating to us more or less has to adhere to their requirements, which to do the design services for these projects, they have vetted companies Okay, well, we can either go by what's called the long list or the short list.
I thought it was for the short.
So Region 9 has said that if we will stay within their requirements, we can work off of what they consider to be the short list, which is 5 vetted companies for engineering services. The way it is then, it is then written is that in there, Region 9, that the project manager, whoever we designate, will choose from those 5 who they would like to start this process. Price is not ever a consideration until after the fact, and I guess at that point, if the project manager deems the price too high for what he feels or she feels that it is, they move to the next. They send a letter out saying, thank you, you're not in consideration, and it moves on. This goes against totally everything that you do when you bid, but this is their process.
And how do you prove you're being a good steward of the taxpayer's dollar? We don't even know what it's gonna
Well,
cost.
you can, after you choose them, my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, I was at the meeting, you can choose from that short list. It's to save time, basically. And once you choose them, then you can negotiate the scope, and if you can't come to an agreement,
That's
you
correct.
think they're charging too much,
You go to the next
You
guy,
can
but then
go
you
to-
get down to number 5
and you can reject all 5 and then go to the long list.
but you
There's,
can't go to
13
anybody that's not on that list.
You can't go to anybody that's not on that list.
This has been vetted, these have been vetted by Region 9
Yeah,
for
they've
the
been
scopes of
previously
these projects.
And this has been used in the past, we've used this in the past. But now that we have Onondaga as our purchasing agent, Onondaga doesn't like this. Most counties use it, the vast majority of smaller counties use it.
Correct.
Large counties like Onondaga do not.
Correct.
They don't use it.
And the one key factor there with why Onondaga does not use this is because they do have in-house engineers.
They have like 9 engineers.
They have 9 in-house
Correct.
staff.
Whereas we
That's
do
why they-
not have any real engineering services, hence the
My
reason that we
understanding
go.
now is every county in Region 9 uses this process.
Except
It has.
Schoharie.
Except
Schoharie, they do have
In-house
a,
engineers.
yes, yep.
And we do not have one.
That's
and
correct.
The other counties don't, and that's
So
why
I just wanted to make that clear, that seems, and it does, it goes against everything that I think we as a governmental agency and entity deal with, but it is adhering to their,
we're running up against the time
correct.
element here for this particular project because of the funding.
We have 18
Also-
months to get it between design and implementation and finish, otherwise we lose the
So this is
funding.
specific to this project, and then we're gonna reevaluate whether we want it.
This is specific to that, correct.
For this one project.
For this one
I will vote
project.
against it if it's gonna be the
No,
way
it's
we
not.
operate.
It's specific
This
to
is specific for
project.
this project, that's correct. That was
And
the other
then
point,
it'll
thank you.
be, we're gonna evaluate, my recommendation, if we go through Onondaga, and Onondaga indicated they would work off the long list and review the projects in the future, but for this specific project.
Right, Onondaga indicated they had a simplified process, like it's almost like a simplified bid within the 13 then. You know, we still go to the vetted people. And then that would help us keep our paperwork in order, because even if you use the short list, you still have to have all this underlying documentation that they're, you know, just like anyone, oversight is needed. And so then if the county wanted to go with the short list, we would just need to identify a process for oversight. So not saying you should go one way or the other, it's up to the county, but we're gonna get more information on this particular aspect of it.
Any further discussion, questions? So we need a roll call vote now.
Frazier? Farwell?
Aye.
Clark? Stammel?
Aye.
Kennedy?
Aye.
Overecker?
Aye.
Bliss?
Aye.
Marietta?
Yes.
McCarty?
Abstain.
Wilbur?
Abstain.
Kotnick?
Aye.
Martini? Lappin? Shannon?
Aye.
5,010 ayes, 0 noes, 356 absent, 862 abstained. Late resolution 93 is passed. I think that's our only late resolution.
Correct.
We have the local law. Local law C of 2018, to be held over for public hearing. Second.
Second.
Representative Overbacher. Be held over for public hearing at our next regular county board meeting. Any questions on that?
Well, yeah, I'm just wondering, is there language in here that's changed from 2007, or is this just something that we have to reaffirm occasionally?
Right. By state law, it can only be authorized for 3 years.
Okay.
So
Okay.
this one ends, I think, April 1st.
Okay.
The previous one.
Okay, thanks.
So there's no changes, it's just the date, okay.
Just the date.
You just need a second and then tell me that they.
Okay, check my date, March 7th at 10 a.m. here. And that's pretty much, okay. Ellen has something she'd like to say?
Yeah, so we were supposed to have the info session this afternoon, which we're canceling, of course. But one thing I was going to bring up, so I just quickly wanted to say it, I will send out an email, but I wanted to explain the reasons for it. So right now, those of you in committees, if department heads come in and want to fill positions, there is a personnel form. And we would ask that you ask the department head to be sure that that is fully filled out and signed off on by the personnel officer and the treasurer before it comes to you. I mean, we have problems that we just shouldn't have. I mean, trying to figure out, is this the right budget line? Is this the correct position name? Because if those things are wrong, the people that are hired into those positions can't be paid. So it would be a great help. And if the department head comes and says, oh, I got the treasurer, but I didn't get the personnel officer, I mean, I hope you would say to them, well, we'll be here till 2 p.m. So go get it and bring it back, because in all seriousness, it saves personnel and the treasurer and I a whole lot of time. So that would be very appreciated.
Anything else anybody would like to add before we discuss?
One thing to consider would be in the future, if there's a really pressing need, like issue like 242 Main, is to consider the possibility of scheduling like a topic meeting. That could be overtime for stuff. You know, especially if there's moving deadlines.
You're talking about addressing the...
Just like if there's a really pressing project that has a fast deadline, consider the possibility of like, a working meeting and discussing.
Right, Dave, Danny's just, I think some of us had talked at NISAC about the idea of, because the topic came up previously when Andrew has raised the issue of an evening board meeting, and our understanding was that the county board could call for a special meeting, which could be an evening meeting. And I think what Danny's suggesting is basically a second evening, I would assume evening meeting would be the preference of most, but a second meeting in a month with focus on a very specific topic, like 242 Main, or I know in strategic planning, Ed has raised, the jail, and we have the highway garage, and I mean, there's a lot going on, and it might be a way to get us all in the same room to tackle that project in more detail or whatever.
Okay. Thank you all for coming out on this snowy day. It's have a safe trip home.